All right, council, let's call to order the special council meeting for the 2024 budget for the town of St. Andrews, Tuesday, November 7th, 6:30 p.m. at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex. We are also, as always, we are streaming through our Zoom webinar, and we are live to Facebook as well. So let's jump into the recording of attendance. All members of council are here again this evening. Thank you very much. And I do want to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Peskotomuhkati people. Approval of agenda. I'll be looking for a mover to approve tonight's agenda, but I do think we'll have an amendment on just one item, I believe, or I should amend that, right, Mr. Spear?
Yes, Your Worship. We talked about going to closed session just in regards to the, I guess, contract, collective agreement.
Okay. So there is a placeholder for closed session. So since we are going to closed session, I don't think we actually need an amendment, right? But we just need to state the reason to why we're doing it. Do we know what reason that is? Or we could just do it when we go to close. We don't have to say it right now. All right. So we will come back to that under K. We will state the reason at that particular time then. I don't anticipate that being a lengthy conversation this evening, just for council's awareness. Okay. So I guess we need a mover for the agenda then. I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Harland. All in favor, any discussion on the agenda? All in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Any conflict of interest for this evening? None. I know that this conversation can go any direction. If anything pops up, just declare it at that time. No presentations. There kind of is, but no presentations. It really is under the introduction, consideration, passing of bylaws and motions, which again, we are here today for the discussion of the 2024 Town of St. Andrews budget. We're on draft 3. So now that we've got all of the administrative side of the meeting behind us, we'll pass it over to Mr. Spear to lead his updated information for us.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Council. So tonight we're going through the third draft of the budget. And I've given you in hand, as well as we're displaying to the public, a presentation. However, this is in my mind the roadmap that we could follow to get to the end of the budget process. So as we're going through it, feel free to jump in at any time. This isn't going to be, I present and you give me feedback. It's some of the slides will be debated and discussed until we get through it all. There may be things that are still in the budget or that we missed in the budget that I don't have up here, and feel free to add those as well, to bring up discussion you think I've overlooked. I've tried to pick up all the changes and anything for new initiatives that we brought in initially in the draft 1. So as we get going tonight, I'm trying to really avoid going through all 40 pages of the budget and just touching on the highlights and some of the things we're doing. But I'll take you whatever pleasure you have eventually in going through this. So we jump to the third slide. So we'll go through the major changes. I'm going a little bit of reverse order here and starting with capital, because obviously they have the most impact on the budget, the biggest numbers. And so compared to our last presentation on this version, there's 2 items that were added. There's pre-pandemic, we had to pull out an old oil tank that no one knew existed until we did. And unfortunately, it had leaked some fuel oil over the decades. And so there's going to be some rehabilitation required. And so the Department of Environment hadn't really worried about it during the pandemic because they weren't sending people out to the field, but now they are. And so we've already had a quote, the $25,000 to follow their recommendation is what's needed. Just to be advised, it could be an ongoing, not necessarily at that full level, but there could be some monitoring situations that could go on for 2 or 3 years till they're happy with that. Another item that's there is the updated Taurus signs. So there's 6 or 7. The ones specifically we're talking about are the ones that are shown on your report or on the screen there, which I found out there was actually 6 or 7 of them in town. So they're at the head of the intersection here, the top of the hill. By the Algonquin, there's one at the bottom of Water Street, and there's 1 or 2 on King Street. And so they actually, probably most of us that are from the area haven't really looked at them for a long time because we're used to seeing them. But the truth is, some of the stuff that's on them is old and wrong. For instance, it still points to the health center on Sophia Street, for instance, or it points to other things that don't even exist anymore. So we've talked about this and we had a committee, we have a design, but we wanted to get that looked after over the summer. Your worship, I do think that this is something that would probably fall under those development funds from TALB. And so it's really almost neutral to the tax rate for your consideration, but it's something we'd like to add. Video surveillance for 15,000. And then there's housing. So right now, under housing, we have, I think, $225,000 regarding the second phase of the Compass housing. But I made you aware that there's some potential developers that are looking for some consideration moving forward. And so I guess if you'd like, your worship, I don't know if maybe a good point to start and discuss, maybe look at this one point. If you're
Sure.
okay, that it's easier to probably address them as we talk about them than jumping back.
Yeah, I think we're at the point now where we need to make some decisions and start rolling this up. I will be completely candid and honest with you. I'd like to be as productive as possible. We have that optional Saturday meeting. As much as we're meeting, I'd really like to avoid that if we could. But with that being said, we do have obligations to make sure the budget's passed properly. So if we need that time, we do. But I really think we should start. We've got little high level conversation right now, but I think we're really at a point where we're going to have to start diving into certain decisions and make them. So I guess if you're looking for the first one, housing is, I know we've got several requests that total over $300,000. To be honest, one of them, I just don't have enough information to even put a placeholder in it. And then the other one, I'd have to see what the return is other than the fact that it would be a development, right? So I just feel like it'd be an arbitrary number right now because we haven't had enough dialogue to really understand what amount should be in there. We talked about the Housing Accelerator Fund. That obviously is a big tool, but when you're relying on other levels of government for every project, then this council may not be able to get any other housing initiatives underway as well. But council, I'm all for housing, but there is 3 developments happening in this community right now that are in the process of being done. That's a significant amount of money of tax dollars we spent just to put a concept out there. The wharf, we could get absolutely shocked when we actually get the bids. I just don't think we have a lot of money to throw at this particular item. It was a major priority by a number of us that ran. I think that you already showed action, but if you're going to put something in there, I think my recommendation would be, knowing that funds are tight, would be not a groundbreaking amount, if that makes sense, but maybe an amount where you could help developers, when it comes to town services or something like that, of providing some type of incentive. I guess a question to you, Mr. Spear, back is, I know we set the budget for the year, but if we get hit with a incredible housing opportunity, I'll grab a number out of the air that the municipality decides we want to spend $100,000. Just because it's not in our budget doesn't mean we don't have the ability to go to the capital. Well, we can't go to the capital borrowing board for that.
It's a big, it depends, your worship. And so if it's for services, we can. So let's say, well, just on the Champlain subdivision, somebody comes in and says, we'll build 50 houses if you give us $100,000 and put in water and sewer and control the road, they're happy for that. But if it's a similar thing like we did with Compass Housing, which is an economic development grant, you can't borrow and things like that. And so that would make it a lot more challenging to do mid-year, to be honest.
So if it was a situation where we needed to put in a public road on land, we could go and borrow the money, or we needed to put in water and sewer line, we could go. So I guess kind of my reaction to this, council, is pick your priorities. And I know this is still one of them that we identified when we did our priority setting exercise, to keep that in mind as well. But over to you. But I don't see a world in which this is a huge number this year, unfortunately, because of the obligations that we already have to make. Over to you, Council. Council Bennett.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the past couple of years, when you guys were leading up to the Compass Housing initiative, was there a survey done in town on the need for housing and affordable housing?
To answer that, yes. Through Xander Gopin actually led the process. There is a thorough housing assessment done for not just St. Andrews, but the entire region. And it actually breaks down to how many units are required. And based on the construction that's happening within the community, I'm not talking affordable, I'm talking overall units. I think we're about 50% of the way that the report speculated of what we needed. So yeah, and those are rough numbers just off the top, but yeah, there is a full study completed on that.
Does that also include the private construction that's going on too? Because we've heard about the 7% growth and stuff in our area. So those numbers, like, we're not just talking about the developers that are developing, but what about all the private builds?
I guess to the answer of that one is it is housing inventory. I don't know if that necessarily would adjust. I think for the most part, it's a lot of rentals was probably the thing that needed the biggest demand.
Rental was the highest, and if you go to the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission's website, they did a very thorough report, which is regional, but then they broke down each community on very specific units. And it does include private dwellings, but they felt that that market was already being met, that those, that, especially in today's dollars, those that could afford to build houses were. It was apartment units for those that were either looking for rentals or for a lower cost alternative is where the need was. Now, Paul might be able to help me. I think it's 150 to 200 units over the next 175 units over the next 5 years is what the goal is to meet the demand.
So just for the budget perspective, 25,000 in there, you said? 225, sorry, for the current commitments. Okay, so there's nothing for new opportunity, just for council to be clear. And out of the 225, some of it was already kind of, I know we have to, but it was already committed in a previous budget, right?
Not some, your worship, all.
Yeah, not some, yeah, true. And there was actually about 100,000 left of that budget, is that correct? That was originally
120 of the, well, back on what we thought we were going to spend 2 or 3 years ago. Yes.
So if you're looking for a number of you did want to go about it, that number is the one that jumps out to me personally, because that is something that we talked about spending to spur housing. It hasn't been spent yet, but with that being said, it is debt, right? Like if we spend money on this, it means we're going to borrow for something else, right? We're not at a surplus here. It's not like it's reserves. So I guess I'm looking for some direction from council for this, and I know it's. You've got proposals for an additional 300,000. I can be honest, you'll probably get hit with another one this year too that we don't even know about yet. So again, the housing accelerators funds there. And I actually think that we can go to ask for money. We're not going to, I could be wrong. We're not going to do another economic development grant. I can't see us have the money to do that. I could be wrong. I can't see it being the same format. I could see it help to put in water and sewer. I could see it help to put in a road. But I could be wrong. I would say that if we are looking to continue to do that, we should be developing some type of bylaw that actually would properly, so people could apply. And I know you can't give back people's property tax, but you usually do it over multiple years. So you look at what the particular investment's bringing in, and then you basically give a return on investment for, say, up to 10 years. So to me, that's almost the way. Go ahead.
So, your worship, I guess the two developments that we've kind of talked about, both are looking at like low income or to very affordable, we'll say. And both of them rely on upfront funding in order to make that happen. Now, one of them has actually already been before council and will probably come before council in the next couple of months in form of a development agreement. And that would be Stonewall Place Landing, the Chris Evans land across from the Bar Road. That one is, you know, you've seen development plans that they may have a request. Well, I know they'll have a request for services there. The other one is a little bit less sure that they've got good concept in. But they haven't actually made a formal request there. Well, I guess they did. Is look for $200,000. Memory serves me correct. 225 as well. For development down at the old Legion space at King or Queen and Queen and Princess Royal, sorry. And so they're both there. The one that's and we haven't really gotten into a deep discussion, but there have been requests, so that's why I want to bring it to your attention. The one across the Bar Road would probably be in the provision of services, but the one on the Legion lot, whatever the timing is of that, I think the service is already there. Obviously, it's a corner lot, so they were looking for basically the equivalent of an economic development agreement to help lower their upfront capital costs. Just to give you kind of what you're thinking or what's out there. So this isn't necessarily just a figure in the sky. We're looking at that. There's two in process proposals that people have out there, and are either have put numbers before council. And so we have to know, what you're going to do about those. The Housing Accelerator Fund, that's moving like molasses, to be honest. There's been some sporadic announcements around Canada, but it's, we might not find out for a year how much money's there. So I'm just putting it out there so you're well informed. But if you don't want to put it in, I understand where you've already committed 225,000. But just so you're aware that those asks are actually out there and have been brought to council's attention.
Council, over to you. I'll have to get some consensus here and some thoughts. Personally, if I was going to put any number, it'd be the 120 that we originally committed. It gives you money to help spur projects, but it's not. Or I would, to be honest, say that we've made our major investment. We're concentrating on the wharf this year. It's over for you, Councilor Hurtle.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I think you basically just took the words right out of my mouth. I think we stand to be surprised by what this wharf is actually going to cost, and I think we need to make provisions for right now. I mean, I'm still a large supporter of the need for housing in this community, and I think it still needs to happen. But in terms of what our priorities are right now and what our budget is, I think we need to focus on the ways the wharf could possibly get around us if we're not careful. So we have to make provision and buffer. And I think, unfortunately, at this point, that just needs to be the direction we go in.
Perfect. I will note on that if it is truly a low income project, they do qualify for provincial funding as well, which we're not a partner in our last sod turning. It was pretty much municipal dollars that made that project happen. Councillor Harlan.
So I guess I'm supporting the fact that given what we've already committed and given that we have made major investment, I would be supportive of putting a pause on it for this year, taking a look at it again next year after we have something concrete with respect to understanding what the wharf is going to cost us, and supporting anybody in terms of accessing the accelerator fund. But I think at this point this year, I feel we've reached a limit in terms of what we can do.
Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship and Council. I echo what Councillor Harland has said. The one thing I would like to say is, which I find very nice, is that she said we've already committed. Unfortunately, our councillors from the Shamcook and Bayside were not in on this discussion, but when we first became a council, our priority was a fire truck and housing to be put into the area. I think we've done those two things to our best of our ability. Now, the thing to me is the wharf. And I feel that that's where we need to sit right now, is that we need to sit on things that are public safety orientated. And I put the wharf under public safety simply because it's not going to be safe in a few years. Anyway, thank you very much, Your Worship.
You could, unless someone else, Councillor Ware.
I'm a great believer in the silent majority out there, and I think by far the majority of the residents of St. Andrews want to see housing. I know the special interest groups that are interested in the wharf, and they're going to get what they want. But if you take the population in total, I would say the majority aren't interested in it. I think it's a necessary part of the downtown. I don't know whether it's necessary to have a wharf that's capable of tying a large vessel up and that type of thing, but we do have to have a wharf. There's no question about it. And but housing is a serious issue in the country right now, not only in St. Andrews, it's everywhere. And for us to pause on something that affects so many of our residents, particularly the residents that are trying to make do on slightly above minimum wage, me doesn't seem fair. You know, those of us that can afford our own house, which all of us can, we sometimes take it for granted. But there's a lot of people out there that can't take it for granted, and they deserve to have an acceptable place to live. And when I say deserve, I don't mean a sense of entitlement. I mean, if they're hardworking people trying to raise a family, I don't feel sorry for the people that are not out there gainfully employed. They can't get housing. Go get a job first and then worry about housing. But I think there is a substantial group of people that housing has to, in my opinion, has to be on the radar all the time. And we have to, we talk about services versus development grants. I don't differentiate between the two. Now, the Shiretown project, certainly the services are there, so we can't do that. But on any development, like at the end of the Burr Road and stuff, that's no different than giving cash. You put the services in, it's, you know, it's all coming out of the same pocket. So it, but that's just my thoughts on it. Something that I feel very strongly about, and well, that's just where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess on that one, Mr. Spear, just for council's information. So we earmarked a budget. We didn't spend it all. What happens to the 120 if we don't spend it? If we don't incur the debt? Like if we put a placeholder for, say, the 120 that's, and whatever that number is that's left from the original allocation that we put, and we don't spend it, is that debt for the town, or is that just something that we just didn't spend? We've got it in there if we need it, and if we don't see the right opportunity, we didn't use it. Is that an option?
I guess hypothetically, your worship, some of that money will have gone back into reserves.
Okay.
So some of that will be set aside, and I should have brought it tonight, but I think we have over $500,000 set in our general capital reserves. It's part of my spreadsheet. I calculate that for all 5 years, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it tonight, but I'll forward it to council just to see, because there is some funding I use out of that. And so if a super duper project worth 100 to 200 is there, maybe we could take out of that. But again, the wharf project sneaking up on us is always a concern.
See, that's what I'd almost rather do, is use that. So if you get to your point, if you have, housing is a very important thing. If you have a really, really good opportunity, and I'll give the example of, you have an affordable development that, you know, the tax dollars are going to be paid back in 2 or 3 years. Why would we not jump at that? Right? Like, we've seen that, right? And not necessarily affordable. We've spurred projects that are being built in the community right now that by the time the next council's done, it'll be paid back in full and continue to fund this community. So to turn our back on it altogether, I don't think is the right response. But in the same sense, I think the big splash has happened. I really do. I don't think we have the means to continue to, you know, be developers. Like, if we want to continue to invest at this level, we might as well form our own housing corporation, because it's significant investment, right? Councilor Blanchard.
Well, to your point, I think there was some discussion about forming a housing corporation, and I'm wondering if having some money in reserve might actually allow us to kickstart that, perhaps. To Councillor Weir's point, excuse me, knowing that we really are only about 50% to our goal, or at least the stated goal of the housing report that was done, I think that still leaves an awful lot of people in our community without a viable option, right? So to sort of pause and say, well, we're part of the way there, I don't know if that, I kind of support Councillor Weir's point of view or train of thought, in that I think even if we're not investing at the same level, I think there's still an opportunity for maybe a smaller investments to see if we can't, again, spur on, maybe not support to the same extent that we have previously, but at least maybe we might get a few of those projects over the finish line, I guess, if we were able to provide a little bit of funding. So I'm supportive of having something there, whether it's the 120 or 125 that we had previously unspent, but having that in the budget I could support something like that. But to your point about the reserve, to me, that if we have that capital reserve, that might be something that we're looking at for like the wharf, if there are major overruns that we need to sort of draw on something like that. So anyways, just my thoughts.
I think Councillor Bennett, I'll go back to you, Councillor Ware.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Council, for your input. I certainly appreciate hearing stories of past before we got here, especially like Councillor Heenan's position, talking about the need for a new fire truck that the community definitely had a need for, and the need for affordable housing. I echo your comments that there's still absolutely a need in this community for more affordable housing. We certainly have probably enough high-end housing in this community, but there's certainly a lack of affordable housing. And I believe that need outweighs the want. And sorry, I'm going to step back just a second here. We also, I believe that the community needs a new wharf as well, and I support that initiative. But I do think that there's two issues here, and one is the fact that we need a wharf, and there's an option that we can get it with the money that the feds and the province provide, if we go with the simple rock berm. And there's no burden to the community. There's no 15-year mortgage and saddling future councils with that debt of 15 years and increasing taxes to pay for it. We want a lot of people from St. Andrews want a more traditional looking wharf. So right now before us, I believe the real question is, do we put money where the need is for affordable housing, or do you put it where the want is for a pretty wharf? Because right now we're talking about $2 million plus whatever overages might come at that, plus up to 2 years of turmoil downtown to fix the wharf, to make it a pretty wharf. Whereas the rock berm, we're told that it can be done in 6 months. It can be done 6 months at no cost to this community. And that would alleviate a lot of extra funds where we could put it towards affordable housing. And I believe that's the issue that we really need to deal with here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. It is just important to note, just for clarity, that and perhaps you do see it that way, Councillor Bennett, but I just want to clarify that the wharf money, if we did the 6 million, all that, the money that we get from the federal government provincial, it would go down with it, because we would still be on the hook for our percentage. So don't get me wrong, it would save money, but it would not save the full amount, like the 2 million. It would save, I guess, it would be a significant amount, probably 400,000. Would that be 400 to 600,000? Yeah, so it would be a significant savings overall for sure in debt for the community, should we go with that. But I would really caution council not to get into that debate tonight. You're going through public engagement. I think before we debate the option, probably the best practice would be to hear from the public if you do public engagement and then debate. But I hear you, because that debt does come into play with other spending, right? So yeah, so on that, council, what I'm hearing is two different things. So I know we could talk. I think everybody agrees housing is important. I think you've already shown that it's important by your investment. It's not going to be fixed, and you could probably do another 3 projects and it's still not going to be fixed. So what I'm hearing is kind of two things: is we have the Housing Accelerator Fund, we have some private developers, let it continue, look for opportunities. If something really comes up, we can go for debt. But I'm also hearing we kind of committed from a previous budget, we were spending this amount of money, we didn't spend it, so let's keep that amount that's remaining in the budget, and it gives us an opportunity. And then if nothing comes up that we really want to spend, just like we didn't last time, don't have to spend it, right? So there's 2 ways of looking at it. So I guess I'll look for a show of hands, because we did talk about this at length. And the 2 options will be how many would like to just keep the 225,000 that are already committed for housing for this year. So we are spending something this year, the 225. How many would like to see the 225,000 plus the remaining that was left from that budget, which was roughly 125,000? Who would like to see the extra 125,000? So I guess I'll say, who would like to see the extra 125,000 and who would like just to leave it the 2? So does that make sense to everybody, just to get consensus? Yeah, sorry, I didn't give you a chance to say. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'll ask it to Mr. Spear. 25 years ago, I remember attending council meetings sometimes it was between Christmas and New Year's to make transfers to reserve funds, because I'd go in and say, you've got a surplus here. We got to get rid of it. And I heard subsequent to that, once I was out of that business, that the province had put some rules in to stop municipalities from holding these meetings, 3 days before year end, to move funds into reserve funds. And can we move the 120 into a reserve fund and then draw it out for whatever purpose we deem necessary?
Yes, we can. So by regulation, you can go up till midnight on December 31st. You have to do it in the same calendar year as your statements, which I fight with them every year about, by the way, that I say, how can you do all your projections when you still have stuff outstanding? But nonetheless, that's a different argument. But nonetheless, so yeah, so we'll do projections, and hopefully actually in your first meeting in December, we'll have gotten at least close enough that I'd be comfortable to say, here's the reserve funds that we can put into our things. It might show a little bit of a surplus or a deficit, but usually pretty close enough.
Perfect.
And so I just expect there'll be significant surplus this year, Your Worship, just because we cut a lot of capital things, including the wharf. And so we can probably commit to putting that and even earmarking it for housing in the future. And then knowing that it's there, whether it's spent next year or in 2 or 3 years' time, we know it's committed.
As a follow-up to that, if we put it into a capital reserve fund, then we can't use it for development. We could only use it for in-ground services or something like that, because that's the only thing that's of a capital nature.
That's 100% correct. And that's the problem. And you'd made the comment earlier about it being out of the same pockets, which I agree, but the silly accountants that we are with PSAB, it does make a difference because we can't borrow against it if it comes out of the economic development grant, essentially. And if it comes mid-year, we're kind of too late to borrow against anything else. So if we had that decision now, we could increase the borrowing and already in order to offset it, or increase the mill rate, whatever it takes to do it. But it's easier to plan on if we're partnering with somebody with their upfront capital as opposed to supplying services. It's easier to set aside something now, to be perfectly honest. Although having said that, sorry, I'm taking too much time, but we could set some of that
We're on
money.
Slide 3.
Yeah, we could set some of that money into operating reserve funds too. We have those, so maybe we'll split it between the two, so we have opportunity in either direction.
All right, council, I know that everyone thinks housing is important. I know everyone's trying to manage debt, but we do need to put a placeholder in here. Keep in mind, it's not the final budget we're passing tonight. I just would like to see a quick show of hands if you think we should add the 125,000 to that. And that's consensus. So we have enough. So let's add the 125,000 in plus the 225. So roughly, you're looking at that point around $350,000 placeholder. And I know you'll get the exact number. It should just reflect what was left of that budget. Sorry, council, to rush that along, but as you know, we've got quite a few to go through. I do understand that housing is a major initiative. So naturally, that's going to be a longer conversation for us than some of these other projects. So we'll skip ahead to slide 4, Mr. Spear.
The next slide. Sorry. Go ahead and laugh, Councillor Weir. So staff made the decision that some of these could be deferred or outright eliminated. So I'll just go through them quickly. The town hall railing, if you've been there, there's a lot of bleeding of rust going on. We think we can solve that through just some repairs. So that's been eliminated. The Chandler Lane street end, that was carried over from an earlier budget. And once we did a visual inspection, we think that's okay. I did make a mistake though. I had 18,000. That was only $7,500 in earlier versions of the budget. It's not 18,000. The storm main on Thomas Avenue. So we ran into an issue earlier this year where one of the buried storm mains had a lot of rooting in it. And we brought in a vendor who's able to essentially bring in a drill, if you will. It's on a pipe that goes in and drills out the pipe. And so it's free flowing now. It's still in bad shape, but what we discovered on further sight that's really only half the job that should be done. So we'd like to defer that for at least 1 year till we revisit it, and it'd probably be like in the 220 2025 year, could be $150,000 to $200,000 to do it all properly. It's not the cost that's wrong. It's just that it's twice as long as we thought in the time period when between the two asset managers. We made a guess and guessed really low. So we'd like to defer that for a year. Switch the generators. I found out that we kind of made an estimate on that earlier on. If you remember, that was bringing the generator from the water treatment plant up here so it could run the ice plant and then moving the other one down there. Our concern is you probably never want to have that water treatment plant off of a generator. It'd just be the first time we take it off the thing, put it on a truck and get a wide power outage, even the month of May or June. And so we have to figure this out a little bit more. And so it's more of a nicety than a necessity. And so we think just eliminating it, and we'll look at it and see how it would look better in the future.
Perfect. Quick question on this slide then. Do we anticipate Compass Housing having any impact on Thomas Avenue when it comes to drainage, anything like that? Like, I know you've got obviously a mitigation plan for Compass Housing, but like, I'm just making sure Thomas Avenue, which already had challenges, isn't going to get more, because that was one of the concerns we heard from residents early on in the process.
So they submitted and it's been accepted by us and through our engineers, a stormwater management plan, and it's actually being directed towards the subdivision. They have some on-site storage, and so it'll be released. It's not going to the detention pond, but it is going through the ditching system. But in a normal rainstorm, you'll probably hardly notice it. In a very heavy rainstorm, you'll notice it some.
Perfect. I guess just on the fact that they drilled it, for someone who first home was in Fredericton with those big trees, the roots went through my drainage line, and they come back pretty quick. It wasn't you couldn't do it once a year. You had to do it 2 or 3 times a year. That's how quick they start coming back through. So I imagine that's, if we don't do this project, it's probably something you'll have to proactively do, I think, throughout.
We'll keep an eye on it. Just as a reminder that the size of our lines are probably 10 times the size of a residential line.
100%.
So it's less impactful. But what my own crew's telling me, it's 2 to 3 years usually
Okay.
before they should do it. But the hope would be that it's a high priority. It's just, we've got to do some more research on it, and next year should be fine.
Perfect. The fact that because it's a bigger line, it takes longer. That's good. I just didn't want it backing up on residents again, every 3 months, right? So thank you.
Yeah, well, we keep an eye on it, and getting this unit in isn't expensive or time consuming. So if we find, in the spring after the thaw that it's backing up again, we can get somebody down pretty fast to clear it out once more. Yeah, next slide, please. So the next slide is, there was some additional price adjustments that we looked at. So the paving, there's only 2 stretches. Basically, this is seal coats on some of the roads that we already did the infrastructure work this year. So I think that'd be Alexandra, Queen. That's it. And so that's up to 174. We talked about needing an additional truck for public works, and there's still a need, but part of their concern was there's a truck that we do our own in-house inspections of vehicles. We're licensed with a mechanic. And he said it won't pass inspection, but what we just found out that it's not in the frame, but it's in the body. And I think for $10,000, we can rehabilitate the body enough, because it's just going to be a summertime use, not for plowing or anything. So it'll pass inspection for another year or 2, and it'll also be more resaleable. And so probably in 2025, we'll sell it for another truck. But so there's going to be some major repairs done, but it's going to be, it'll make the needs of the extra crew that we've had hired.
Perfect. And I will say, if you could find an additional truck for public works for 40,000, let me know where you're finding that price nowadays, because they're usually
Yeah.
70,000 for most now.
Yeah, well, even at the 40, your worship, it was a used truck.
Yeah.
The good thing about our trucks is, if they're not a plow truck, even our plow trucks don't put on that many miles. Of course, plowing beats the living tired of them. But, I think I was talking, we only put about 8,000 to 10,000 kilometers a year, they told me, on our truck. So a good used truck would do us several years, but that's off the table right now. So moving to the utility department, we've already talked about some of the challenges there, and that there should be, in my handwritten note, I said there's going to have to be a holistic approach to that, where we're gonna have to look at all the capital needs. We are comparing some of the quotes that we had this year, and they're more than 100% over where they were 3 or 4 years ago. So we've got to go back and really revisit this, specifically to rates going forward. So for Champlain Avenue, we've talked about, right now, the quote is about 646,000. I've talked about maybe having wells down there, so we'd like some time to do it. There's some ministerial orders when you decommission a water line. The Department of Health gets involved and make sure they have alternative water and stuff. So it takes a little bit of time, but on initial, they say it looks like it'll be okay. But we want to at least defer that for a year and have a hard look at it and make the best decisions for council. The other thing is the strainers for the water treatment plant. So there's a picture included on the slide. That whole unit is the strainer, and that's $400,000 to replace. It's that one, particularly steel. We found new technology to do it. There's actually 2 of those in the water treatment plant. So it's 800,000 to replace them both, and both of them are at the end of their life. But we think we can replace 2 of them for $350,000. So it's about half price. So it's a different technology, but it meets our needs. It's been looked over by Department of Health and certainly our engineers. And so we're going to go through phase 1 and replace one of them this year. And if everything works as promised, we'll move to phase 2 next year. So that saved us $225,000 in that budget. Sorry for the small print on the slide, you council. Not much better on the screen. So, your worship, this is the staff. So the last meeting, council asked us to prioritize all our items. I'm not sure, has been presented to you earlier in your budget package, not in the same format, but we rated them. Did you want me to go line by line on each of these, or allow council to supply any input? I'm good either way.
As much as I don't want to, I really would like to get in the spot where we're making decisions. So we have to get there eventually, council. So we might as well go through line by line and put a check mark, X mark, or question mark if we think that they should go ahead for the budget revision. Because I'd really like to start council debating things and making decisions. Now we've had some high level presentations already. So let's go through the list.
We'll go through the list and again, council. So for anything with an A rating is important to continue services, that there's going to be a drop in services or a safety issue. So the first one is the seal asphalt between Reed and on Reed and Charles Street. Or in Alexandra, sorry, that we talked about before, and then for 114,000. And there's one below that too for Queen Street, for the one block of Queen, for 60,000. That's just a continuation of last year's projects. And I can speak to it that if you don't put the seal coat on, stuff deteriorates really fast. But the base coat is good.
That one's just to keep it moving. That one's non-negotiable, council. You got to finish the job properly, right?
Yeah.
It's been done. So I think we could just put, unless someone sees it different, that's a quick one. Check mark beside that. You can't skip a step in doing a road just to save a few bucks. We've already spent what, $1 million over.
Yeah.
So that's the last phase of it. So we can keep moving. I guess my question, I'll let you keep going. Sorry, Mr. Spear. The
Sure.
next one.
So the next one is to basically in the council chambers to take care of the wiring. We have $15,000 there. That one could be significantly cheaper. That our friends at CHEO is actually starting to help us do that. That the fire marshal had some concerns, but as you can see, it's even a little neater now than it was a couple of weeks ago. But we may have to do some like false columns up if we have to run wires from like that side of the room and stuff. So we'd like to leave that in, but there might be a savings, but we don't know what it is till we get more deeper into it.
Okay, so council putting that one and keeping it in is for the fire marshal. So that's, but I will say that if we go ahead with that, then we are making a commitment that this is no longer, I shouldn't say 100%, but if you're spending $15,000 in wiring, you want to make sure that this is where the headquarters is in the future. So meaning this would not be a gym, right? Just or a fitness facility. I want to bring relevant to this and not relevant to this. The Algonquin has sent notification that not only are they reducing the amount of people in a business that can buy a pass, used to be 10 people per business. You could buy a group pass. It's down to 5. But the other thing in the new membership is that they will not be offering memberships during the summer months anymore. So I want council to be aware that before the question was, is there an affordable fitness facility in the community? That would have been a question, but there was a fitness facility. What it sounds like to me is that there is not a year-round fitness facility, even if you have the means anymore in our community. So it's relevant to that, because if we're going to put $15,000 to put essentially secure wiring and permanent wiring to some degree, then we've kind of said this is the council chambers forever, right? Like, not forever, but you get my point. You don't spend $15,000 and in 2 months say, let's make this a gym, right? So I'm personally, I don't know where else we would go. I don't think we have another place in the community, and this is actually a meeting space. I could use the one-offs like the forest fire when the premier was in here. I can use that. The PAC uses this room, and we've used it for several meetings with different groups. So our boardroom at town hall isn't big enough. This is a space that we sometimes use. So if the fire marshal's asking us, I think we have to do it if we're staying here.
Thank you, Worship. The next is, we're calling it phase 2 plumbing upgrades. Actually, it's phase 1. We've canceled this a couple of times over the past, and we've really got to get going on this. Long story short is we've still got the original 1965 plumbing in a lot of the building here, and we need to start upgrading a lot of it. We had some problems with some of the areas already, so we'd want to be able to go through that and get it done. The Bayside Community Hall to pave the parking areas. We have a quote on that. I think there's quite a hump there, and it's just the main parking area on top by the building. It's not the main driveway going up to it. Centennial Park, the ramp, the wooden ramp is accessible, needs to be replaced. It's starting to rot out, and so it should actually be replaced before we go into service next year. Terry's looking at maybe alternative to wood that might be a little cheaper, with asphalt and material. So it's almost like a walkway up to it as opposed to the wooden ramp. So we'll keep you informed on that. The 2000 to replace the pumper. So it's a new ladder truck for $1.5 million. It's already ordered. It's already borrowed for. We're just waiting for delivery. So that one is already a commitment. So the Market Square, Market Wharf, that's ongoing. I've got $2 million for next year. That's design and hopefully the early parts of phase 1. As Councillor Bennett said, if we go with a different option, the lower price, it might lower it a little bit. But with the capital stuff, it's just kind of, you have to look at it over a several year period. But that's what we've set aside. Out in front of Tim Hortons, there's a little rock wall in the corner adjacent to the golf course. We've talked about that. It's really unsafe. They're just piled there. It's $11,500. We've got a hard quote, and that would actually move it back a little bit too. There's some problems with because the snow plow goes by, it leaves snow there, it gets icy. So we're actually going to move it back a long ways from the drive or from the sidewalk in order to, so it's better walking there during the winter conditions.
Quick question on that one. Just because we don't put landscaping walls everywhere in the community, is an option of just eliminating the wall and having a hill like everywhere else. Is that an option for the? So to be honest, council, that's something that has to be discussed. Is it a beautiful wall? Does it give you a good first impression of the community? Because again, not everybody has a landscape wall on every corner in this community. So it's a worthwhile conversation for $11,500. Again, how many, when you drive by that, say, that's a nice wall. Okay. So maybe it's needed. It is a high traffic area in our community, right? So maybe that's there, but we should have a conversation. Do we spend $11,500 or do we just put a hill? Councillor Heenan.
Your worship and council, number one, I feel it's the beginning of our town. Like, I know we begin at Bayside, but when you make the turn, and I just would be interested to see what it would cost us to remove it, replace it with sod, do the drainage, etc. If it wouldn't, if we're talking $4,000 or $5,000, are we going to sacrifice that? That's all I would like to know. It's not going to eliminate the $11,500 from here. It's going to be a smaller amount if we tear it down and we resod it and rethink it. But is the saving worth changing it? That's just my question. I don't expect an answer on it. I just throw it
That's
out there. Thank
Like
you.
Councillor Ware.
No, I concur 100%. 11,500, bring somebody in to tear that wall down, sod it and everything. Might save $1,000 or two, you know. It's,
What I'm hearing is we're gonna leave that in there then. Is that right? I'll keep challenging questions though, but it's the will of council, so let's leave that in there. Next one. Seal asphalt seal asphalt between Harriet and Mary. It's his first meeting.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a while. I'm not used to talking this much. So the next one is Compass Housing. I mean, it's already legally committed to. So short of the project not being finished, we have to go there. The only other one is on the wharf. The wave break has drifted in, and so it's starting to buckle. And so it's a high recommendation that it gets readjusted. It'd be early in the season. It's independent of the major wharf project on itself. In fact, it's really a repairs and maintenance, but we always put big ticket items under capital, at least to bring it to your attention.
Did climate change cause it though?
No, I think the world's largest tides caused it, to be honest.
Be great to get $6,000 for it through the grant, right?
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, that's just something that has to happen, right? So council, we've gone through kind of the A's. I know you need to see the B's, but there's nothing that's jumping out at me that should be eliminated from there. What about you? They are the A's of staff as well, right? So we can go back to it when we see the B's and C's, but I think you're gonna probably in the B's and C's have more conversation is my assumption. Let's skip ahead to the B's, Mr. Spear.
Sure. So the tour signs we talked about before, but that funding should actually come out of the funding we collect from the town. So
No cost to the taxpayer of St.
cost.
Andrews per se, yeah.
correct. We've talked about the generators that we think as staff that at least that should be deferred a year.
Okay.
It's 36 there because we put on the other budgets at 18,000 and one in general and 18,000 utility, but we've just taken them out. So that's a B, possibly even a C.
Let's talk to council about that quickly. Council staff saying they could defer that a year with the wharf cost unknown right now. I think we should defer that a year. All in quick consensus. Everyone think we can defer? That's deferred.
So the courthouse paint the exterior and I have replaced the siding. It's really, siding isn't a good word because it's boards up there. It's wooden siding. And it's not replaced them all. Some of them are falling apart. However, I will say that out of that 100, Mr. Knopper's acquired, I think 100 or 60, 50 from the federal government, and I think another 15 from the provincial government under the Built Heritage Fund. So we're only paying roughly 45,000 of that. Part of the cost issue too is we're asking lost his name anyway it's a doctor heritage expert out of Fredericton to help us with this, and he's provided an in-depth report which you've seen on the building, and he'll provide guidance on when we do the tender for it. So because of the heritage property.
So for this one, you're deferring?
It's still it's in the budget for 2024.
So what is the risk by holding this off a year? And the reason I'm asking that is because we don't have a plan for the courthouse right now. So to put $100,000 into it to hand it over to someone, I don't know if that strategically makes sense if that ever happened, right? Like typically speaking, before you invest 100,000 into something, you'd actually have a plan to what it's going to be. That's just the way I see that one. We're trying to save dollars here. But if holding it off 100,000 costs us 200,000, that's a different type of conversation, right? But with the grant, is that?
Well, sorry, Councillor Harlan, I think I look at it a different way, Your Worship, that the makeup of that building is based on the outside heritage value, the characteristics. So no matter what, it's got to be done, you know, no matter what, short of tearing the building down, that outside work's got to be done. And unless there's some super duper plan that someone's going to come in and do a substantial amount of capital work to it, chances are the town's going to be asked to help kick in no matter what it is. So we're not saving 100, we're saving 45 or so.
45, yeah.
And so it's just, will the building deteriorate to the part that the wall will fall down? Absolutely not. But it's just, then we'll have to go through the application process again and hope we get it. And the one we got federally is the first time we've ever have gotten this, so I'd be tentative that if we don't get it, that they'd withhold it because we didn't complete it. But back to council, sorry.
Councillor Harlan.
Sorry, just to clarify, did you say that there was a grant for 50,000 from the feds and 15 from the province?
Correct.
So 65,000 of the 100,000 could be covered by grants.
Correct.
And the federal grant has been approved, or we've got 65,000 committed.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Sounds like it's something we'll have to do then. Councillor Heenan, I'll go to you. And keep in mind, I'm not saying we do this, but say we decided that we were going to give this to another party, maybe an external party. You could say we just put $35,000 into it, and that is the purchase price. For a bad example, it doesn't mean just because we spend that money that we can't recover it. I'm not saying we're going that way. I just don't want to spend too much tax dollars on something that might not be used for the community purpose, right? So, go ahead, Councillor Heenan.
Your worship, even if we were to give it or sell it to a private company or organization, it is in bad shape. I see it every day. And I'm concerned if we take another year, which is going to be, let's face it, a year before something has moved along, then we may end up having to do a lot more repair without grants. I'm not free to give money away, and the courthouse is like our white elephant that we talk about all the time. But I hate to see it fall down and the shingles fall off, which is happening on the side next to my house. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hurdle.
Just a math check. Sorry, I know it's been a long day for you, but it's 35,000 would be on the hook for, not 45 if it's 50 plus 15. But also at the same time, if we are looking for partners that potentially want to help us with the building, I think that the better shape it is, the more care that we put into it shows that it is a viable addition to the community that would be attractive. And I think that if we leave it alone for too long, we run the risk of it just seeing like it's not a building that anybody cares about. So why would somebody want to help us with it? So I think we should invest in it.
Sounds good. So I'm getting enough consensus here. Everybody that wants to put that money in, just quick show of hand. That's done. Next one.
So out on the Glebe Road, there's a common boat for the people out in Shamcook use called the Dock Road. That there could be some upgrades brought forward by Councillor Bennett on that for $15,000. It's not an asset I have ever used, or because we've never been responsible for it, so I can't comment how much it is used, but I've heard there's festivals or there's events there once a year or something, or twice a year, that there's a lot of parking that's needed, and the ramp itself could be maybe cleaned up and upgraded a bit.
All right, Councillor Harlan.
sorry, you said there's festivals?
From what I understand, again, that there's like festival might be a hard word, but there's
An event.
there's a gathering where several people come out. I think sort of dive it. Councillor Bennett would be much better to talk about this than I.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is how many people actually use the Dock Road would benefit from the upgrade currently, or given our current budget situation, is that something that could be deferred a year?
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Your Worship. So yeah, it's one of the premier dive sites in this region. There was other dive sites in Deer Island and stuff that used to be very, very popular. The access to those other dive sites have been terminated with purchases of land and new housing construction and stuff. So really, one of the only easily accessible dive sites in this region is off the Dock Road, and there are several groups that use that a lot throughout the year. One of the big events that happens from Kojo diving and 40 to 60 divers just at one single time is they have an underwater pumpkin carving thing every year, the weekend before Halloween. But it's a site that's not uncommon to see divers throughout the day come from all over the province to go dive at, as well as a lot of people out our way use it to load their boats. It's a very popular beach. It's very popular with teenagers and young adults. It's a place that a lot of people use it all day long, every day of the year. It's a very, very popular site that gets well used. The road is in desperate need of some help. It's been overgrown. The road is very narrow, down to less than one lane in a lot of the road. The first half of the road was maintained by a homeowner, and he spent $15,000 on it a little over 2 years ago. And I believe it needs about that $15,000 to finish the bottom half of it, which won't incorporate any assistance. There's a ditch on the side of the road, which is eroding fast into the ocean, and that's going to need some significant upgrades in the future. Because as the storms keep coming, it just erodes more of the edge of the road down there. So unless some rock is put into the ditching there, eventually that road will become unpassable. But it's in desperate need of some work now, and it's not a beautification thing like a rust on a railing in the front of town hall. It's accessible. Half tons 4-wheel drives can get down there now, no problem whatsoever. Small cars on nice days, it's a bit of a trek. When the weather turns south and snow and ice come, it's not a good right now. It wouldn't be good for any small car to go down there, period. And a lot of the divers that come from around the province do show up in little hatchback cars and go diving for a couple hours and then on their way. So it's getting to the point where a lot of people won't be able to use that site anymore for any of their recreation needs. Thank you.
Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. I totally hear what you're saying. I guess my concern, since it is a private road, if the public pays for upkeep of the road, what's to stop the homeowner from putting a gate across the road and preventing anyone from accessing it? Either this homeowner or a subsequent homeowner down the road.
Thank you, Councillor. I want to expel some myth there. This is no way a private road. It is a public road that's not assumed. Okay, so it's not that I don't own that road and the person who owns a house on it doesn't own that road. It's just a public road that is not assumed. Because it's not assumed, the province doesn't take care of it now with our 42 cents on the dollar tax that we pay. So it's on the people who live there, and now I guess this municipality to maintain that road if we want it fixed. The one home that's on that property has paid himself to maintain it down the road down to his driveway, which is roughly half of the road. Now really needs some attention from his driveway down to the water, and the launch ramp and the rock berm at the end of the launch ramp certainly needs some attention. And $15,000 is a very small ask. We did get $22,000 last January for Shamcook, $11,000 for Bayside. And I assume this January we'll get another $22,000 for the gas tax money for Shamcook. And the one ask for Shamcook of $15,000, I don't think is a big ask, especially when it's already budgeted for in that gas tax money. Thank you.
We'll go Councillor Ware because did you weigh in, Councillor Ware, and then we'll go back to Councillor Harlan.
Question for Mr. Spear on the gas tax money that is sitting there waiting to be spent. If this is going to be put into 2024, can we transfer that money into the capital reserve fund and just carry it ahead? Won't
More or
affect our
less,
budget?
yes.
Okay.
Councillor Harlan.
So thanks for your clarification, Councillor Bennett. I just need to understand how many unassumed roads, is that the right term? And how many unassumed roads do we have given amalgamation?
I can't answer that, to be honest. I'll have to go back to the department because some of them are private. It's the blue sign roads is what we're talking, but some of them are private too, meaning they are private driveways. But the unassumed roads, I don't know. I'd have to go back and ask the department about if they can give, because even to make it a little, some of these unassumed roads they actually maintain. There's one that had a washout on the Bayside side. And they ended up fixing it.
Who, the
It's no
province?
rhyme or reason.
The province?
Yes. Yeah,
So I guess I just, and I appreciate that this, Councillor Bennett, you have been a tremendous advocate for the Dock Road. My concern is that we don't know that this is the only priority in Shamcook. We don't know that because we haven't consulted Shamcook and we haven't consulted Bayside. And I've been preaching about this for a while to fully understand what the needs are. And my concern is just that if we do the repairs to the Dock Road, and then I guess it doesn't become an unassumed road, it's then an assumed road. Is that correct?
that's incorrect.
That's
It's
incorrect.
still an unassumed road, yeah.
So it means if we can do this piece of work and then we have potentially no further requirements.
We still have to ask DTI permission to repair it. They'll say, fill your boots, but we still have to fill out a form, possibly pay $700
Yeah, there's a
for
permit
the,
fee.
for their,
Right.
Sorry, through you, your worship. So we had to do something very similar to the end of Bar Road when it came to the.
To the end of the Bar Road?
So the Minister's Island turnaround space down
Right.
there. Prior to local governance reform, we actually had to go to DTI, get a permit from them and pay a permit fee to be able to actually complete work on it. But there is a process that you can do for unassumed roads.
Okay. So my only concern is I know it's been, you've been a great advocate and a strong advocate for this. I don't know that this is the only priority in Shamcook because we haven't done consultation with the residents of Shamcook and we haven't done consultation with the residents of Bayside. So my concern is just, I'm not comfortable in making a decision that the Dock Road is the priority until we have a fuller picture. Thank you.
Councillor Neal hasn't entered yet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would it be possible from staff if we could get some clarification with regards to the unassumed road? A little bit of reading I've done on it. Again, basically, it comes across as because it's unassumed by the municipality, then therefore it is essentially a private road. So again, I have sort of the same concerns that we are doing work on a private street, which could, again, potentially be closed off at some point.
I'll follow up, but I did have this discussion with the local superintendent of DTI, and they call it a public unassumed road. Basically, what I had said is that it's a public road, but it's just such, from their standpoint, it's such low traffic that I don't think they even plow it and certainly not manage it. And, you know, to take it even a step back, even their assumed roads, you know, except for emergency repairs on the Glebe Road and in Shamcook number 3, hasn't been a solid plan for improvements along those in the next few years, according to the 5-year highway plan. So these secondary roads, they just are off the radar.
All that up.
Yeah, you can do a follow-up and we'll go to Councillor Bennett.
Thank you for that, Mr. Spear. So again, that kind of again falls along the same lines. Like what was done in Bayside, I know a lot of those were related to direct safety concerns, access for emergency vehicles, that sort of thing. Is there any chance, again, with the upgrades to this road, that we then have certain specifications that we have to follow to, you know, ensure that emergency vehicles can get down there? I know right now with regards to public or private roads, the onus is on the homeowners to make sure that the path is clear. So would there be like those sort of requirements to maintain it to sort of a provincial standard of that road?
I'll have to follow up. My understanding, and I could be wrong, is to put an analogy, it'd be no different if you repaired your neighbor's house as a favor, that you're going over there, you're doing it and walking away, and it's still their house to manage. And so we're not assuming any type of control over that. Politically, other people may come along and say, well, if you're putting funds into this road, what about my road or this area? And since we don't have a good inventory of them, we don't exactly know what that is. But we know this is an active thing that Councillor Bennett's been advocating for. But I don't particularly understand it, you know, what the long-term effects will be, and I can go on that and ask a few more questions, but I'm fairly certain that it's just because we touch it doesn't mean we're going to acquire ownership of it or have an expectation to go further. To add on to what Councillor Bennett was saying, me and a contractor did do a walk down, and he's right. There's a ditch, but there's also woods and growth in between the ditch and the main road. So if that's cleaned up and rocked, that'll widen it out, and that wouldn't be very expensive, that much. One good backhoe in 3 hours would probably clean that up. It's the buildup of the other stuff would be around. But as far as a standard, an assumed road has no standard. It just is.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, your worship. I'd like to address Councillor Harlan's point there on not addressing the community and not knowing what the needs for the community are. And I absolutely concur with that. But this is one issue that's been on the table, and we've very publicly spoken about it in council here many times, which is publicized for the community's knowledge. And certainly nobody has protested the whole idea of it. But I also want to point out that we've already approved money for Bayside Hall for heat pumps. And now we've already agreed in principle for a $52,000 parking lot, and we haven't addressed or asked for any consultation with the community for laying asphalt or heat pumps. So a need is a need, and it's not a want. It's not a I want a nice new rail going into the town hall because one is rusty. This is a road that's in poor shape that needs some attention. And the reason why I'm kind of adamant about this too is I am a resident and I live in the area, and that's an access point where a fire truck could go down if the road's in good shape to get water. If a place is burning and they can go down and suck up salt water, it is an access point to the water where fire people could go to help out in our community. And the road's in such poor shape now, I don't know if it's possible. So any work that's done down there will help the community on many different levels. So it's not just a recreation thing, but I know that this council takes tourism very, very seriously, and they've invested a lot of money into tourism. And that area is one of the main areas of tourism in Shamcook, outside of Ministers Island and the launch ramp into Ministers. Thank you.
Okay, well, yep, we'll go through this. We'll try to get some consensus here soon. Councillor Han.
Councillor Bennett, I had an interesting conversation with a full-time resident of Shamcook who wanted to know where it was, Dock Road. And he does a lot of work in Shamcook, and he just said to me one day, he said, "Where's this Dock Road?" And I said, "Well, you live in Shamcook, don't you?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I've been a lifetime resident." And he didn't know where Dock Road was. So he was going to go and have a look and see if he could find it. That's number one. The other thing is, comparing rocks in a road is not the same as an asset that's owned by the town, i.e. Bayside Hall. Bayside Hall is an asset of the town that we as a municipality have the right and the responsibility to maintain. I understand that a railing may not be, but the point is, these are assets of the town. We don't know who the asset of the town, if it's the road or what it is. Is that an asset to Shamcook St. Andrews? I'm not sure. But I just found it interesting when this person who's very well educated and lived in Bayside came up to me and asked me where it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I know that a lot of people know it as Cunningham Beach. That's when I grew up in the community, that's what we call it. I never knew I don't know if it was called the Dock Road then, but it was always Cunningham Beach when I grew up. Lots of conversation on this one. Councillor Hurdle, then we'll go back to Councillor Ware, but we'll try to wrap this up relatively soon.
I'll try to keep my points
thanks.
succinct. I hear the
I don't mean to
message there.
rush you,
No,
but
but I just want to talk to your comment there for a moment, and to Councillor Bennett as well. I mean, growing up in the community, Glebe Road and by extension Dock Road is always an active part of my imagination and what I think this community to be. And I value that area a lot, and I always have. And even as a child, I used Cunningham Beach and I'm down there a lot. So I just want to let you know that I absolutely agree with the importance of that and how we perceive our community and how much a part of it that it is. And I guess to a little bit of Councillor Heenan's points too, what I guess my major concern is that with Bayside Community Hall, that does belong to the community. Dock Road, it just doesn't. So I think that there is ground to have this conversation. What I would like to see personally is an actual plan for how we really include Shamcook and how we imagine ourselves. That includes things like tourism, that includes the Dock Road, that includes the Glebe Road, and how we really highlight and foster and include that in our long-term plan. What I worry about is when we're talking about the difference between public assets versus private assets, or maybe not private's the wrong word, but municipally owned assets. Maybe it's just not the discussion for us right now, but I really want us to get to a point where it is. But maybe for this year, I just think that, I mean, we have a lot of questions about it, that's all. So, but I hear what you're saying, the importance of that. I've used that beach for my whole life. So I don't want you to think that it's because we don't value that area, but because we really do. But I just have some concerns around the logistics of it all. Thank you for being a passionate spokesperson for it, because I agree.
Councillor Ware.
Just a suggestion to bring this to a head. We're talking about transferring the gas tax money into the capital reserve fund. And we transfer it in and to use his worship's term, put a placeholder for the dock road. And, you know, we've set the money aside. We got a placeholder. We, you know, we do the project in 2024. We know we've got the money to do it, that type of thing, and council can be more comfortable with their decision at that point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. That might be a good way to, oh, Councillor Gumashell has not entered, so I gotta let him.
Haven't said much
If you
tonight.
haven't entered,
There hasn't been a chance.
yeah, first time around, I can't shut you down, so.
Okay. I think Councillor Bennett's brought forward a recreation, a potential asset for Sham Cook. He's an elected official from that community, or from our community, but from that area. He's bringing forward a nominal amount of 15,000, and I don't think that's unreasonable. And I think he should be congratulated for arguing so passionately. I think we should support this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gumashell. All right, so let's get some consensus. I'm hearing a couple things. So there's really three options here. There is just table it for another year, another conversation. There is just put it in the budget and do it. And then there's Councillor Ware's suggestion. Let's put it as a placeholder. Staff will know before we proceed on a project like this that council needs to debate it further. Because to your point, the gas tax money could just be transferred to reserves. It's there. So there's really three options. So I guess one would be, let's get how many, I guess you could break it to two and then subdivide it. So we could say how many want to just defer this project altogether, not do it next year? How many would like to see it done? And then the conversation is there more debate on it, or do you want to just go ahead with it? Okay. Yeah. I'm hearing three different things here.
So I guess I just need clarification around putting the gas tax money in the reserve. And then we then have a further discussion around this at a later date as a council in terms of completing the project. I'm really fuzzy on this piece.
So am I, and the only reason I am is because typically you would defer a debate because you need more information. What new information do you want, right? Like, do you want another analysis done on it? Like, you're going to be facing the same decision next year when you talk about it. So why are we deferring making a decision? We've been talking about this for a little while now to council. Like, this is at least the third conversation that I'm a part of.
And the 15,000, is that who came up with that number? How did we arrive at 15,000?
No, we just had discussions, very high level discussions. It won't be more than that. I have been down with the contractor, and that 15 will go a long ways for the work that needs to be down there. The road itself, I was down in my car in the fall. The road itself is narrow, but the actual driving on it's not bad. Someone's gone through there and graded it this fall, I'd say. And so, but it should be widened. And like I said, so I was down with one of our local contractors, and he said it wouldn't take him a morning with a backhoe to clean up the growth that's come in between the ditch and the lane that's opened. And then maybe, as Councillor Bennett said, add some armor stone to the ditch just to slow down the water and reduce the erosion going forward. And then with the extra, we could look at, there's a little bit of granite on the beach that we could use to set up. It's, you know, we could do it all for $15,000. I'm pretty comfortable on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, council, let's keep moving. So how many would like to, let's just do two options for now and see what happens. How many would like to defer the project? How many would like to see it in the budget for 15,000 for next year, right? All right, let's call the question. How many would like to see it in the budget next year for 15,000? One. Hold your hands up there to see it. Okay, that's, yep,
Nope.
consensus. It's in.
Unanimous.
A lot of talk for unanimous. I appreciate it. It's healthy debate, council. Next one, Mr. Spear.
So, thank you, worship, sorry. So the parking at the Anglican Church, we're actually meeting with them tomorrow to discuss that. It's on Montague Street. They've put in a big project for water lines and things, and now they want to add some parking, to be similar to this Queen Street side. There's a little bit of water issues there, and there's a telephone pole stuck in. And when the Queen Street one was put in, the standards have changed. You have to be 15 meters away from an intersection now before you can put in parking. So it's going to shorten it up a little bit. So there's only going to be 10 spaces. And we have to talk to the church because in order to put them in, they're going to have to kill 3 nice trees that are on that side. They're not huge, but they're probably 15 to 20 feet. But, you know, parking's always an issue, and they have had discussions, although they haven't had a full commitment of providing some financing for it as well to meet towards it. But got a meeting early tomorrow morning on that. But staff supports this. It is a B, meaning it's important, but it's, you know, services won't stop. Parking is always an issue in the downtown, as everyone knows. So if we can make this work, it'd be good additional parking close to the center of town, which is always at a premium.
Quick question, just to jog my memory. Was it the Catholic Church that had a request for parking, on-street parking as well?
Yeah, so we're meeting with the Catholic Church Thursday.
Okay.
I think we've got a meeting this week with the Catholic Church as well. They were a little bit late coming to the table. There's some challenges with their property. We'll have a talk with them that haven't gone away. And so we have to have a talk with them to see what they're thinking. On the side of the road, there's 2 or 3 big trees that they probably won't want to lose. And then where the old manse was, I think, behind the church, there's an area there, but it's on their property that I think it's probably used for parking now. It's gravelled. But the town wouldn't usually invest in other people's property, so to speak. So we'd have to come up with some type of arrangement if that was the thing. But again, that's one where, and Councillor Heenan could probably speak better to it, but that area behind the church, there's a driveway already going to it. It probably could be widened a little bit, but it's pretty much flattened out. And once they removed the building there, they added gravel. And so it didn't look to be in too bad of a shape, but we don't know the request. It took a little while to get to meet with them, and we'll know more by next meeting.
So question on this amount of funds then as a follow-up. So it's safe to say that the additional parking, the main benefit for it isn't necessarily for the churchgoers. Indirectly, they'll benefit from it, but it's actually for overflow in the summer in St. Andrews. So I guess my point on that is, should the taxpayer be paying for additional parking for the downtown, or should the tourism accommodation product development, would parking not be something that should be a strategic investment by this town to help improve our visitor experience? I'm wondering, you know, we looked at one earlier. I'm wondering if this project doesn't fall right in benefiting tourists, because if it wasn't for tourists, I don't think we would need to spend this money. That's just where I'm going at with this one. I know there's only limited funds. Every dollar we put into this is a dollar we don't put into something else, but this is parking directly that we're doing as a result of tourism. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, worship. There's a new leased parking spot in the downtown core along Water Street that I think a private owner has put in place there. Do we know, just in terms of, will it always be leased throughout the year, or is this just to get ahead of the winter parking ban? Do we know how that will work moving forward? I guess it's not our business to necessarily know, but just curious.
One behind Town Hall?
No, it's
Is
beside the framing store. To set up behind. It's got these spots that are in there. Just noticed it this past week.
That's news.
Yeah. Just curious. Well, obviously we don't know anything about it, but yeah, it's there. Surprise.
So sorry, what was your question though?
I was just wondering if we knew what the plans were, if they were in the summertime going to be opening that up a little bit more, if there are always leased spots. I guess we don't know at this point.
Yeah,
so.
I think it tends to be opened up primarily for the winter parking. But I don't know. I know where you're talking about, and actually a couple of the spaces were used for one of the developments downtown. So they may have limited use because there was an agreement that for that particular building to be built, that they had to have permanent parking over there because there wasn't enough on their own land.
Thank you.
So council, I know that we desperately need parking, but I wouldn't say the town can't operate without this parking. So for me, as if we can't use the tourism accommodation levy, and we're waiting on the wharf, we've said several times, we haven't cut much, just to be completely candid and honest with you. That is almost something that doesn't have to happen, but in the same sense, I can guarantee you for $35,000, you're not gonna get a lot of opportunities for parking. So, I don't know what everyone's thoughts are, but I would like to use the tourism accommodation levy towards that. I'm seeing enough head nods. Mr. Spear, do you think that's something that we have within the budget? I know we're building the washrooms. I know there was the other
Yeah.
item that we discussed that we'll be using it for. What was that?
The tourism signs.
The tourist signs. Is there still enough money projected in this coming year? I think there is, right? I
We
think
haven't spent anything since our share since the accommodation levy went in. So after this year, there's probably going to be over $300,000 available.
and to be honest, we are collecting this money and holding on to it as municipalities. So now we can say we've done a new washroom, we've improved signage, and we've improved parking. It makes sense to me. Yeah. All right, Mr. Spear. So we'd like to move that into that particular budget.
Yep.
So again, technically speaking, that does not cost the taxpayer of our community money as a result.
So the next one is the Van Horn Trail, the final phase. I'm calling it a B. There's been a lot of planning and things going into this. And so the next phase that we almost had put into a tender this year was the big one is going from Cemetery Road all the way over to Bar Road. The only reason I have it as a B is it's a recreational asset. So you'd have a lot of upset people, but we do have to borrow 300,000 in order to pay for it. But it's been in the plans for 2 or 3 years, but obviously it's if it wasn't completed, it'd be a disappointment, but it's not going to be a loss of level services within the town. It just wouldn't be a new service coming along. So that's the only reason it has a B, but it is 2/3 funded by other levels of government.
To me, this was money that we kind of committed, especially if I could get 2/3 dollars. I know it's recreation, but you're probably never going to get a better deal on a trail. We won't be able, it won't be, let's be honest, it won't be completed anytime soon if you defer this one. And I think we're approaching the end of the time period for this money as well, aren't we? Is it the final year or 2 years?
We've got 2 years, but we have it all identified what we want to do. We were so late getting it out. The Trail Committee of Council members, I think in September, October, asked us to defer it till the spring when they thought the prices would be down, that the fall construction tends to be very expensive, which I agree. And so the money is near committed.
Council, over to you. Councilor Harlan.
Just clarify, how much of a commitment is it for us?
A third. So $330,000.
Councilor Hurdle.
Just wanted to echo what you just said a moment ago, Mr. Spear, where we would have already have done it if the Trail Committee wasn't looking to save the community money. So I think we're committed.
Consensus, we're committed. I kind of thought we were. Yeah. All right. But point taken it lightly that is a significant amount of money, but I dare say when we run into that money, we're probably not going to be doing too many $300,000 trail projects. Age friendly, I know it's on there probably because the community goes, but I think removing that money would be.
There's a commitment as being part of the age friendly designation that we have to spend so much on
I don't.
infrastructure.
And they're such an engaged group and they're actually getting wins every year. I don't see how you cut that, but council, over to you. I think it stays in, right? That's been consistent with previous years as well. Okay.
So the next one, council, is 3 additional moorings for rentals at the wharf for 7,500. This one is actually profitable. It actually pay for itself, and probably, if not the first year, in 2 years, we were borrowing moorings from the yacht club this year because we had so many visitor boats. It's just because we have so few of them that the town owns ourselves. We've had several people that are now leasing some of ours full time too, not just occasionally, but we've had 3 or 4 boats that are, instead of dropping their own, just rather pay us, and it's frankly be cheaper for them to build their own, but nonetheless it's easier just to rent ours. And so I wouldn't recommend cutting this one because it pretty much pays for itself, but again, it's not necessary, but it should be, within the revenue, we'll recover that quickly. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Let's do math. Okay, so it pays for itself is what
Yeah.
I'm hearing. Okay.
I actually noticed council too, we talked about it earlier, but I didn't make the slide for some reason, was the washrooms at the point. That should be considered a B, although it's probably an A for most people at this point in time, and that is coming out of the TALB money. The cost of it's going to be a little bit higher. When we originally budgeted for this a couple of years ago, we thought we'd go in partnership with MBCC, but the way they've done their programming, it would drag it out for months and months and months. And so we're reaching out to private contractors now. So we're thinking to do a good job. And Mr. Acton says, you know, in addition to restore some of the trees and stuff that were lost during the lines being put in and stuff, and to add some privacy to those that are across the road in Argyle Court, thank you, that plant some, you know, mature trees, not just saplings. It costs a few $100s. So the total cost of that project is probably going to be about $150,000. But again, it's all coming out of the TALB money.
And then, but just important to note when that project's done that we'll have an increase in janitor.
Yeah, which has been built in right now.
Janitorial.
Councillor Gubashaw, I think, had it.
Just quickly, I hope that when we do design the washrooms, that there's the opportunity for it to be a year-round washroom, maybe not right away, but moving forward, that potentially it could be part of an accessible portion of the town. You can go down to the accessible bird watching platform in the winter, go to the accessible bathrooms, which would also be open and hopefully in the winter at some point down the road when we can better afford it. So in the design, I hope we include the possibility that they're year round.
So you're
Thank you.
proposing as well snow removal on that section of the trail as well, right? You're proposing snow removal on that section of the trail as well, right?
Not in this year of the hack and slash, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, when you run again for another term.
Right.
All right. Thank you. I guess we're on to C.
So the C services are niceties, but not necessary necessities. So the Ross Museum, it says the front walkway. Really what it is for any of you that know it, if you're going off of Montague Street and walking up towards the front door, that walkway is going to be sufficient. Part of the problem is the stairs need to be replaced in the next few years or rethought. There's some issues there. So you don't want to do too much to the walkway if you got to replace those stairs. But what should be looked after is if you turn left and go beside the building towards what's the back door and towards the library museum parking lot, that's almost grown over with a hedge and stuff. And the gardens have been taken care of by our furry friends. And so it just being the 200th anniversary, they're hoping to have some money to dress it up a bit, put in some deer resistant stuff, improve the walkways a little bit, which I'd agree with. It'd still be gravel walkways and then increase the walkway that goes to that back door. It's primarily for staff, but for some people it is an exit.
Okay. So it's a staff entrance and then I gotta ask, there's no way then to do it cheaper than $4,000 for a staff enter. I know it's a small amount, but it's a staff entrance for $4,000. Is the public using that to access the building? Because again, I'm just cognizant it's a C, so it makes me want to analyze it more. Is it just a matter where you can put some gravel in? Are we looking at putting boxwood in or something deer resistant to your point to make it where you drive by, it's visually appealing as well?
Well, to put it another way, your worship, except for the trees, which might be, I don't know, $1,000 to $2,000. Public Works can probably do the rest of the work. They've done bigger projects than this, and just to dress it up, clean it up and strengthen it up, bring in some better gravel, compact it in and call it a day and get it ready.
That's where I'm going with this. I've seen some of the work Public Works has done and it's spectacular. I know Arnold Levitt came in and did that park, but even the new Elizabeth Street Park, town staff did a portion of that as well and did a phenomenal job. So I just question if there's not an opportunity to knock that number down a little bit. But yeah, maybe
How about I just put it down by a couple of $1,000 and I'll talk to staff.
council's at your will. Sorry to be the bad cop here tonight, but we gotta save money, folks. I'm scared of the wharf, to be completely honest with you. Those engineering assessments now are a couple of years old. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Spear. Next one.
The roof flashing and shutter maintenance, it's probably more a B than a C. It is actually, we looked at it and the flashing is falling, like coming apart from the bricks on the library side of the building. So it probably should be done to protect the integrity of the brick that's there. We didn't get, as far as I know, we didn't get any a formal quote. That's a bit of a guess on our part, talking to some of our local contractors. The shutters themselves need some, this is just stage one. Some of those shutters they're still wooden shutters and some of them are in bad shape. So they have to be carefully taken off. And I think they have to be glued back together. So that's kind of part of that process too. We can go after built heritage funds for that one. That one isn't in hand, but be a project they would love. So we could probably cover half of that through granting.
Okay. Sounds like it has to be done though.
The gallery lighting was just, again, in the Chestnut Hall period, they've got a lot of things planned for the next year, and they're hoping to get some better display lighting. We might be able to cut that down a little bit because, you know, we have an electrician on staff and have a look, but they have a full year ahead of them and they're just hoping to increase the quality of the lighting that's there right now.
Are they using LED lights?
Yeah, anything we do now is for LED lighting.
Okay.
Frankly,
but
they're
that-
brighter than most.
The Ross Museum hasn't switched everything over yet, have they?
Almost. There's some of the stuff you kind of have to play not the game, but you have to watch out for the heritage characteristics of the building when installing some of that stuff, and can be almost too bright.
Yeah.
Sorry, through your
Thank you.
worship, like all the light bulbs themselves and the chandeliers and stuff have been changed to LEDs, but to Mr. Spear's point, you can't just change some of like the chandeliers because they are heritage within the building, so.
But I do know that they have certain light bulbs for museums.
Councilor Earl.
I know we don't want to necessarily be attaching everything we're doing to this, but is there room in the tourism accommodation levy to take care of this? I mean, it is a significant tourist draw for the area.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of room. That's the way you want to redirect it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's a little different because I remember when the whole debate started, and that wasn't this council about when we were aware of the funds. The original reaction from some members of council was, oh, we can just take this tourism accommodation levy and pay for the museum. Maybe we can pay for the library. We could pay for all these assets, the archives, like we could just put all the money. And the intention of it was to add tourism development, some new things for tourist experiences. But with that being said, improved lighting isn't tourism. See, there's no rule that you couldn't do it. But I think the way that it was kind of communicated to the people that were collecting the money from their visitors was it was for improvements like we talked about, like washrooms, like parking. And if we start putting it into assets we're already managing, they kind of thought that that was us just gouging from the fund to save our own budget. That was the concern there.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. I think it's a very good point, but just in the specific case of this being the 200-year anniversary of the building, and it is a big tourist draw, we want to make sure it's looking its best for this time period. I think there might be room to have that discussion.
Yeah, that would be the will account. That was just for your information, the debate of the day, right? Mr. Knopper.
So through your worship, the majority of the lighting would actually go into the gallery area that's in the museum. So if you haven't traveled in there, they actually have a specific gallery that looks like Edward Bannister and talks about a lot of the history. And that's the lighting area that would be the majority improved. And we actually had the head of the Lady Beaverbrook Art Gallery come down and actually look at all the lighting in all the rooms and said that it's actually in very good condition, but the gallery itself could use improvement. And that was where the main focus of a lot of what they're intending to do for the 200th anniversary will be targeted at. So that's what they're asking for.
Right, Council, I'll just on his comment, how many would like to see that come into the tourism accommodation funds, the 5,000? That's majority. We're spending it today, aren't we? Thank you. Good suggestion, Councilor Hurdle. So we'll move on. We've already discussed the one. I guess the next one is just the Prince of Wales will be the last one, right?
Beat you all to it. So that we have $400,000 available in grants for that project, but it is still $600,000 to the taxpayer. One of the struggles we've had with it still is, and I was this is over a year old, so like the wharf, I'm scared of how much it actually cost. I will say that this cost does include a lot of underground storm sewers to widen the road, and so there's going to be a loss of trees. And that's been something this council and previous councils have struggled with. And we'll follow the will of council, but we studied this one kind of to death, and there's really no more as far as other suggestions. It's whether you support this project or not at this point in time.
Thank you. I know we debated this one previously, if I recall. What is I know it's for widening, and it wasn't a sidewalk. It was basically like the additional strip like on the side.
Like
I
the
guess
Hart
my
Road, yeah.
question to you is, out of that money, does that do the entire road as well?
I believe so. I think it goes from King right to the exercise park.
So my question on that, if it's doing the entire road, is when in our asset management file would that road be expiring, or when do we think that it would have to be replaced? Meaning, if we have dollars now and we have to do it within 3 years, as much as you don't want to spend money, in 3 years, you're going to get the whole bill, which is probably going to be a greater amount than that. But if it's got 10 to 15 years useful life left, for example, I know that we have a matching dollar program, but what I heard from the council debate before is that they were not going to knock those trees down, right? So,
I've got Mr. Acton on the line here, so just double checking. It's a two-part question though. So the actual road itself's in bad shape. It should be done like in the next 2 to 3 years. So I'd hate to give up the money that way. But I'm asking how much would we save by not widening it?
okay.
You know what I'm saying? And
I know what you're saying. Just my only, that's my question. But the whole thing is this situational grant is based on us putting in the accessible. So if we don't knock the trees down, then this project doesn't go ahead with the funding, right? So,
although, Your Worship, I'm talking off the top of my head now. I'll have to look, but I do have concerns. So the next couple of years is to actually put water and sewer in, which I don't think is in the budget right now. I don't think that's included in that 1.1 million. I think that's just the widening of the road and storm.
so when would this offer expire? Is it this coming year? Or do we have oh, okay. Of course it is.
Well, yeah, we can reach out and confirm.
Okay, because to your point is we're not going to do this work if there's infrastructure underneath that needs replaced as well, right? So we'd have to do
Absolutely.
we'd have to do the
100%.
infrastructure same point.
And
So
the
this might show as call it 1.1 million, with a big chunk of it coming from other levels of government. But the reality is we could have underground work that takes it up over the 1.1 million pretty quickly. So I think we need more information to answer
Yeah,
that one. Yeah.
no, Mr. Acton just let me know the water and sewer is good. It's just the storm would be added and the road would be paved
Okay. So the water
and
sewer
widened.
and widen.
It's the widen that the grant requires, and it's also the question of council.
So if we don't do this, we are going to have to probably on our own redo Prince of Wales Street.
Just repaving will be 500,000 or 600,000 guaranteed for
So
that stretch.
basically we're getting the widening for free is what I'm pretty much seeing here. Is it maybe a little bit of savings as a result, obviously.
And the only thing I'll say, Your Worship, it is a lot of money. I get that. But it's probably the most walked area in town, and it's kind of completes the loop, and especially if Councillor Gumashall gets his way and we start plowing the thing, save people from getting blown off the point in January, February, and March, and making the sweep around. Although they can come up Augusta Street, come to think of it. But nonetheless, it's a good area. There's safety issues, but it's a significant cost.
And there's no way, I know we've got to ask this question, but I'm looking for maybe a different answer. There's no way possible that we can widen it even to qualify for this grant enough where people can walk without knocking those trees down. Those trees have to, I know it's not all of them, but it's a lot of them, right? On one side of the road.
Well, sorry, Councillor Heenan. So it depends on the way you look at it. So we can widen it without knocking down trees, but it probably be barely safe enough to walk. You know, there's a safety issue here, because if you remember early on, we were talking about it was that the kids from the elementary school would use it to walk the trail and stuff. And so Can we widen it? Sure. Will it qualify for the funds? Maybe not, because it has to be active transportation. We're kind of making it just as narrow as we can, but we can look at it and see what we can do, but we wouldn't be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, I guess we would. If we didn't have to put in storm, we'd save $300,000 to $400,000. I know that was a significant cost.
So council, over to you. I just have a hard time surprising the community cutting down every tree on one side of that street. I don't know if you've seen photos. It's one of the most photographed streets in the community. There's people are in the middle of the road taking wedding photos because they droop over. If you surprise the town and cut down trees, and I know it's important to note that they're towards the end of their life cycle, but I've heard straight up that when Kingsbury Garden was done in 1998, the two oaks that are on the main lawn of the cafe were at the end of their life cycle, and they're still very beautiful oak trees. So it's not always what you think for life cycles. Councillor Hurl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wonder, I'd like to hear from the public on this one, just in terms of whether they would rather see it be a one-way street or cut down the trees. I think if we made it one way, we wouldn't have to lose those trees. So I think that that's something that the public should weigh in on, because given those two options, I know which one I'd rather choose.
So the only problem with that is we've had this discussion is the plows. So it's a different plow mechanism that to do one ways. It has to be the V shape, and so we'd have to reinvest in that. If we did it all winter, I guess that's the other opportunity to do like we do the summer, maybe do it seasonally, make it two-way, be one way to look at it. So yeah, I changed my mind. Maybe it's a good idea.
Councillor Gumichel and Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Worship. Rather than go around the horn, I'm sure we have lots of opinions. Maybe we could get a robust staff report on this for our next meeting, like the history, the options. I know you guys are busy, but seems like we could talk about this one and beat it around for a long time.
Robust, the next meeting won't happen. Just to be clear, we're supposed to meet again next Tuesday is all, to try to get this to bed. So we could have something probably early December, or if you just want to say if it's X amount of dollars, we'll do it, and then we can let you know what it works out to. I know that's really leaving it out there in the open.
I'll try to get some type of consensus through this process to give you some direct. Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I guess I'm just a little confused here, because again, we have discussed this numerous times. And my recollection of that was that the discussion around removing trees was related to a sidewalk, not the widening of the road. I remember being in favor of widening the road because it saved the trees. So I'm a little confused now as to why the two of them have merged together.
So are they merged together? It's a good point. Are they merged together, Mr. Spear? Is it possible to have our cake and eat it too?
With the sidewalk, we would have had to cut down every tree. With widening, we're gonna have to cut down some of them because they're so close on the encroachment. It's just where they're at. And the stormwater, because you'll get equipment in there with, going down, widening it by several meters in order to get the trenches in.
It'd be interesting to know how many trees that is. It really would. And I know if you go and tape them for us to do a drive-by, it's going to put the fear into the community while we're looking at it. But
Your Worship, just to throw it back at you, and appreciate Councillor Neal's thing, because I kind of remembered that too. So it's just the widening, but it was to get that meter. Because typically they want 3 meters widening now. That can't happen. We'll be halfway into people's living rooms along there. But it's, I think it's only a meter, if I'm not mistaken. It is 1.5. So we can go back, have a look. I will say traditionally in St. Andrews, we've always done the capital budget and operating together. That's not necessary, just to be clear. We could put this off if you decided you wanted to borrow to do it. You could make that decision into the new year. Larger centers, most centers our size and smaller do it all together, but places like Moncton, Fredericton, St. John, Quispamsis, Riverview, etc., may sit on it for a few months, say we're going to take X amount of tax dollars to put into it, and then figure out their capital plans. So it's not necessarily the end of it that a decision has to be made, but it would be nice if it was.
yeah, I don't like the thought of extending the budget period and doing a separate budget. I'm not saying we can, I just don't like the thought of it, because we do have quite a bit of bylaws and things that will need to be revisited. We still haven't passed our procedural bylaw, like the list goes on. The zoning bylaw is going to come up. The municipal plan is going to come up. I just don't like.
Your Worship, though, I want to be clear. Sorry, maybe misspoke. I think we can go through most of the capital. All I'm saying is we can introduce something like this, just this one item later in the year and have a discussion and possibly
that's-
still do it, not the whole budget.
So council, I'll try to get some consensus on this one. It's hard to know what to do and you don't know what the impacts of what your decision actually is. Straight up, you don't know what the impacts are on the street if you did it. The one way is a good suggestion, but I bet you the plowing would probably be a significant investment.
If we kept it like the downtown and only made it seasonally one way, then that wouldn't be an issue. If we ran it two ways in the winter, it wouldn't be a problem. And there's enough, the traffic volume post Thanksgiving is so low, would it be ideal to have a lane? Sure. Is it, or that extra width? Sure. Is it necessary? Probably not from a practical standpoint.
Oh, and then the other thing that you gotta take consideration is you need a active path for campers to get to the point, because you don't want them, every one of them heading to the downtown because they can no longer go down Prince of Wales. So there's other considerations we would have to give before making that decision, right? What are the impacts on traffic flow, period, right? Okay, council, I don't know what to do with this one, to be honest with you. I don't even know what to ask you. Do you want to just revisit this in the new year? It sounds like we can adjust it, but
Yeah, I'll speak for you because I guess you don't want to speak for yourself, but if we pointed that direction the other way, it's going to lock Kingsbury out. It's going to make people to get access to that area a heck of a lot longer drive.
it is, yeah, no, it would, but if we're gonna do that, we'd also want to make sure that we have a very clear plan for that new signage as well, because it might be directing them towards the one way. So there's a lot of consideration doing that. And typically you consult a fair amount with the public before you switch the,
Yeah, through your worship, you also have to look at Argyle Court, Sophia Street. There's a number of streets there that would extend drives from your residence.
Argyle to get home, they would have to go downtown and around the point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry to keep drag this out any further than it is, but just throwing this out there, in some areas, they have traffic calming measures that include bump outs, which reduce lanes to one lane. So I'm wondering if we could do that around the trees that we might be losing to protect them. You can just bump the road out around those trees and then reduce it to one lane and slows everybody down going through them.
That would probably put it on a private property, wouldn't it, to get around the trees? Oh, I gotcha. Oh, I got you. What you mean. I know what you mean by that.
Be potentially an issue with plowing, but I'm just thinking for the walkers though, you're forcing them into a narrower lane, wouldn't you be? Behind the tree, you mean? Oh, yeah.
I guess if there were 6 of those though, that would be, it's an idea. I appreciate it. I guess what we'd have to know, what would be really interesting, I guess, back to Councillor Gumachel's, is what I'm hearing is staff said we can revisit this item in the new year. I think Councillor Gumachel's recommendation of having a staff report would be really recommended and really know what the impact is on the trees. It's a very big issue. A lot of people in the community would be very, very, have strong opinions on if you went ahead with that. And so we have until I guess, what's our deadline to make a decision like this? Anytime next year?
Well, I wouldn't say any time, but you'd probably want to have it decided by the end of February so they can decide
Okay.
in March, put it out to tender so we can have it
So-
done through the year.
How many counselors don't feel they have enough information to make a decision on this at this point? All right, so that's kind of my consensus. So we'll get more information on what the impacts are on that. More of an analysis that explains it clearly, the various options to Councillor Neal's point.
And so
We'll
your
go
worship,
there.
it's okay to take it out of the budget then, realizing we'll come back to it. That's back to our main point tonight, was to figure out how to get a budget together. So
Yeah,
it will affect borrowing, at least in the short term. So just
perfect.
Okay.
I think that's enough direction for now, though, thankfully. Next one is our projected debt levels, and I think all we really saved, we did move a little bit of money over to a different fund. That should have reserve, but really we only saved 36,000 outside of that, didn't we? Now,
Yeah,
but keeping in mind, council, I'm not belittling that, simply the fact that staff already cut a pile of work out of it, right? But what you can see in the projected debt levels is probably pretty consistent with what we actually talked about, right?
yes, your worship. And, if you remember, when we had everything in kind of what we wanted, the debt level was at over 10% into year 5, and now it's down to 7.5. So we're finding savings and moving things along.
Okay.
So we're at 8:30, Your Worship. I'm okay to keep going. I just didn't know if you guys were getting worn out after meeting last night, or if you want to keep plugging away.
Well, I guess council over to you. We're not gonna get through everything tonight. I'm gathering, just being straight up and honest with you. Like, cause I'm looking at, if you get to the back, we're gonna be discussing mill rates between St. Andrews and the old Shamcook Bayside. We're not gonna get through all this tonight. So what's council's pleasure? Do you want to kind of pick this up at a later time? Again, you just met last night. We're not getting it through at all. It is, I will note that we're gonna switch to utility next, right?
Yeah, if actually, Your Worship, maybe my suggestion would be to go to the next 2 to 3 sides on the utility capital. Then when we get into some of the operational stuff, those will probably garner a lot more discussion, especially under economic development and things. So we could put the capital stuff to bed tonight and then jump into the operations when next we meet a week from tonight.
That's good with me. Everyone else, does that make sense? Get to the utility? Okay. We're having fun. Keep going.
So we're going to utility.
You need a motion after 2.5 hours, Mr. Nopper? Yeah, so we don't need a motion yet. Okay.
Slide 11.
Yep.
So within the utility, it's really A, B. It's either things are falling apart, we better replace it, or B, we can defer it a little while. We don't do C's. Everything's A, B that we suggest the next 10 years. So in the water treatment facilities, we talked about that we put out an RFQ earlier this year, fall, and we had it 400,000 for a strainer. We think it can be, or we know it can be replaced now for 175,000. Just so you understand, they're at the end of their life. There's 2 of them, so I'll be asking for the same thing a year from now. But it would have been either way, even if we'd gone with the $400,000 model. It was 2 times 400,000. The water meters are a continuation. We don't have to have a big discussion on this tonight, but we're going to have to redo the water bylaw after we kind of get through this in the next few weeks. Within the water bylaws, it reads right now, commercial enterprises are responsible for replacing their own meters, and for larger lines, that can be like $5,000 for a 4 to 6 inch meter. But if you remember when we had the gentleman in 3 or 4 years ago, I think it's pre-pandemic, that talked about our water rates, they said a lot of places will pay for them because there's no incentive for large institutions to replace them, because all that happens with the faulty water meters, they start recording less water going through. So it's probably staff's recommendation. There'll be some upfront cost to actually do that. So that's 25,000. There's a water pump to be replaced at the water treatment plant. That'll keep 1 in spare. We have 3 active going at any one time. The problem with them is when a pump goes down, it takes 8 months to a year to replace it. And so we want to have at least 1 in inventory. And then there's the the boards inside, the UV computer boards need to be replaced for 8,000. And then at the lagoon, the treatment facility, they need a grinder flight pump for 8,000, which is essentially like the inside of a garbage disposal on a large scale to grind solids into smaller bits before it goes into the lagoon. So sorry, Your Worship, I flew through that one pretty fast.
No, but I kind of feel like you should. So really what you're saying is A's are must do's and B's we can defer for next year. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Well, so through the B's, so for the Champlain, there's $60,000 still left to kind of try to figure out what we're going to do into 2025. So I'd like to leave that out. We talked about maybe the possibility of doing a test well or 2 to see if that's even feasible. So I'd like to leave that money there. The security cameras at the water treatment facility, I think, are important for 5,500. And then there's $5,000 for a storage shed at the water treatment lagoon. Some of that stuff's just sitting outside right now. They're water pumps, so the water doesn't necessarily hurt them too bad, but at the same time, it'd be good to protect them. It's just rubbers, parts and stuff can deteriorate. So they think they might be able to come up with a bigger savings on that, but it'll just reflect in the rates anyway, and we can reduce either or transfer from reserves to pay for it or reduce borrowing if that's the case. So I'd like to leave everything on that page as is. And if we find savings, it'll just reduce the borrowing we need in 2024. But just to kick it down the road a little bit more, council, there's a significant issues with the prices going up significantly and all this stuff. And I think we have to have a hard look at our water rates. Won't be this year, but I think through next year, we're going to do like a 10-year plan on what needs to be replaced and the effect on our water rates. And council's going to have to look awful hard at that. Because as you know, the utility fund's supposed to be self-funding. And at the current rates, I don't think it can be. That we were looking at, if you remember, I think it was this year, we we're supposed to do a water line on Harriet Street, just from Water Street to Queen Street. So we're talking one block, and we got a new price, and the price has doubled in a year. I just shaking my head. So we want to really review this and figure out what everything's going to cost. It's just gone up. When I started about 20 years ago, you could do a whole block for about 200,000 or less. Now it's up to about 450 to 500,000 to do all three things in ground, water, sewer, storm. And so it's gotten very expensive, and we've got the water rates may have to reflect that if we're going to continue with this level of service.
So is that a conversation that can be deferred until next year? It can.
Yeah,
be.
that's what I'm saying, that we're slowing down any major purchases in the utility in 2024, so we can provide you through next year a plan for 2025 and on, comparing it to our water rates and trying to figure out what council wants to do.
It's important to note though, some of these challenges you talk about sustainable water rates, and we have to figure it out, but I bet you almost every municipality across Canada right now be saying the exact same thing. They're just the cost versus what you can get for a water bill. It's not a business. If it was a private one, you'd want to get into. Well, you probably would, because then you can charge what you want, but this challenge is probably across the board. I imagine there's a lot of municipalities that are projecting hitting their debt ratio in the very short term.
Well, all I can say, Your Worship, is that remember we got additional funding to do the wharf project we weren't expecting. It was essentially because a lot of water projects had to be canceled across the country because they couldn't afford them anymore, even with the 70% financing. That the price has just gotten so out of control. The municipalities and I knew of at least two in New Brunswick that had the same problem. They're multi-million-dollar infrastructure programs, and once the bids came in, they had to cancel it outright.
I will say, if they open up, what was it? What was the fund that was when I was first on council? The Clean Water Fund or something was it called?
Clean Water, Wastewater Fund.
I'll tell you, if that fund ever opens up again, we should submit our next 5 to 10 years projects right there, because paying 100% for this stuff is it's just not sustainable. I think we submitted 3 projects and all 3 got approved.
What's that?
I think we submitted 3 projects and all 3 did. Or was
Yeah,
it
they
4?
did. That was our biggest. That was one of our bigger. I think we did Charles Street, which is about the equivalent of 3 blocks.
Yeah.
And a couple of others. It's about $1 million over 2 years, or 3 million, sorry, over 2 years.
All right, council. Councillor Heenan.
Just in retrospect to what you were saying about if the fund ever opened up again, would we be ready to submit it, like if it opened up again, like, or do we need to have some work done beforehand so that we would be ready if it ever happened?
I could be wrong, but I think staff could put something together pretty quick. We've got a lot of asset management files that are ready to go.
Okay.
Do you require engineer studies to do a lot of them, or no?
For the grants?
For the grants. No, that's part of the grant.
Well,
that way.
Staff already have it all broken down. We have cost. Yes, we probably go back, so we make sure we're asking for the highest amount we can possibly get. But we know the lines, we know the length. It takes the engineering firm less than a morning to put together a Class E estimate in order to make the submissions.
All right. so council, I think that was the kind of the stop point for tonight. We did get into some very big conversations, obviously, this evening, which is part of the process. Budget times, usually when you have the big item conversations, we're gonna have to meet again. So is the next plan for the budget that weekend session? No, it's the which date?
Tuesday the 14th.
Tuesday, the 14th.
Yeah, so for the public, the next budget meeting we're looking at is Tuesday, November 14th at 6:30 PM, council chambers.
Okay. So where we would go the next meeting is you'd revise kind of the budget based on today's conversations, and then we would just pick it up from kind of those general operations, major changes, right?
If you
Slide,
prefer, your
14.
worship, I'd rather just continue with this. We'll put out the agenda and just continue with what chair we can. It's just not going to change enough that we have to.
just out of curiosity, is there anyone that wanted to hammer through this evening? Is there anyone that wants to? I don't want to, but I think it might be strategically smart.
We're fine.
Quick show of hands though, because it might not be consensus. How many would like to just get through these slides tonight? If we got through these slides tonight, would you be presenting another budget to us for potentially for final review at the next meeting?
We'd probably skip the next week's meeting and then go right to the approval on the 18th, is it? Or 22nd. If so, and then skip the weekend.
Council, it's your pleasure. I know it's been
But-
a long week, but
I guess from my perspective, my head's in it right now. I'd like to continue, just because that's where my head is.
technically 9 o'clock deadline, right? Let's just do a quick consensus. How many would like, because we're not at the deadline, how many would like to get through this tonight so you don't potentially don't have to meet again next week? That's what I'm getting ready. How many would like to leave now and meet again next week? All right.
How
I
many
see a
want to
couple-
cry? No.
What is the vote for, what is the vote for continuing the meeting, Mr. Knopper? Is it 2/3?
2/3.
We have 2/3 of the vote, so I'm taking my jacket off. Sorry to our friends at CHCO.
He's taking his jacket off now too.
All right. This is gonna be a marathon, folks.
All right, so I will say a slide we skipped with the projected debt in the utility. At this point, that doesn't mean much. We're very good for the next 2 or 3 years until we kind of do our longer range planning. I'd like to jump right to slide 14.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about the major changes in operations since the last version of the budget. So under admin services, I had to increase audit services by 5,500. Under our regulations, every 3 years, we have to do an actuarial study of our employee benefits. It's required by law. And this is the 3rd year, and I missed that in the earlier versions of the budget. The energy audit, this is the one that we announced a couple of 3 weeks ago on the top 5 consuming facilities. We got $250,000 for 200 from FCM to do it, though we do have to put in 30,000 in order to access that funding. Policing services. So policing services have actually gone down. We just got this afternoon the numbers for the first quarter. So for the PPSA partners, which would be Bayside and Shamcook, it went up by 3%, but hopefully we'll only be doing 1/4 of that. We have to talk to council about that after. But so the policing cost that you see in the budget might go up by 3% for the Bayside and Shamcook for Q1, and the rest should be flat. So there's still savings compared to the previous draft. Environmental development, the garbage figures, I've increased them once already, but they're still discussing for Bayside and Shamcook. They're getting together on Friday with the I call them LSD manager, whatever the term is now, but Darren McCabe looks after right now until we combine the contracts for the previous LSDs. And so he's meeting them, so we'll know there that could still go up by 10% or so, but we'll see. I try to build a big buffer in, but as we've discussed, that's they're there. The big one, which is good news, I talked about it in my staff report last night, was that the province of New Brunswick has now taken over one of the positions at the library, so that saved us $26,000. This one, the library manager has asked that because of the extra staff member, they are saving us money, but now they want to increase programming and things for that person. And so they've increased programs, computers and books and periodicals from 4,100 to 17,500. I will say, I think there's an error in the earlier budget for books and periodicals, only a couple of $1,000s, and that's really low. Usually we give them $5,000 to $6,000.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because I think it said 1,000.
Yeah,
Previous
it was-
report and it went to 8,000.
Yeah, but the $1,000 figures was carried over in error from something. But I mean, maybe that one. Sorry, council, I'm flying through this stuff pretty fast, but so I guess that'd be the only one. I figured the top two ones I think we're kind of committed to. The others are savings. So it's the Ross Library, if you want to support their additional programming, they saved us 26, but they've asked for an increase of about 13. So taking half of it back to do additional programming.
Council, over to you. The other option is just to meet them a percentage of the way there, give them an increase, but not the full amount as well, right? Where it's a nice significant bump. I'm saying $12,000 is more. Well, we don't know what the number is, right? But based on that report, $12,000 is a significant increase. And I think I wish I got it right here. Actually, wasn't it 1,500 to 5,000 for computers or something?
Yeah.
That's a lot for computers, right? In the run of a year. Maybe not, but it's an annual amount too, council. It's not like a one time.
I will say about that, your worship, is that's actually dictated by the upper levels of government,
Which ones they buy.
what they buy, and a lot of that's licenses and stuff too.
True.
So they get it direct
Doesn't go as
from,
far as we think.
it's not necessarily new equipment. It's a lot of licensing.
Okay. Council, what's your pleasure on that one? That one seems to be the flexible one.
Quickly, could we get a report on specifically what they're looking to do?
Yep, I can forward you what they have. I mean, for the programs, they won't be that specific. They just know they asked for an increase. Again, we've combined them all. I think it went from 2000 to 4, but it doesn't, they do a lot of child literacy programming, and I think it's just to increase that.
Yeah, it says council, and it goes, programming goes from 1,061 to 4,000. Computer equipment goes from 1,700 to 5,500. And books and periodicals, which is probably wrong based on checks I've signed over last year, it says 1,400 to 8,000. I think you're probably your 4 to 5 is probably
Yeah,
more
what is, yeah.
accurate. I do know they get a lot of donations too of books. Probably it's a little bit frustrating because people are just dropping off probably books there to have 6 or 7 copies of sometimes. But Deputy Mayor.
I know I'm on their board. I can't seem to get off it, but thanks to Councillor Gumashell. But anyway, yeah, you're not sorry, but anyway, they do work on a very slim budget, and they work very hard to keep the numbers down. And I know that for a fact, having attended their meetings, and they are always looking for new ways, and they do get a lot of repetitions for books and whatnot, but I think their ask is not unreasonable for new computer equipment, because some of the equipment down there is not up to snuff. And they do have a lot of people, tourists included, who come in to use their computers and their system. And programming is a big thing that they have down there, and they work very hard. Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Hayden.
Thank you. And for helping Councillor Grumashell out, you should probably get like the Order of New Brunswick or something like that. Councillor Heenan.
Your worship, I put a lot of faith in what the library does. We are now facing literacy challenges in New Brunswick, and unfortunately, I don't think it's the time to cut back. If we have patrons who are interested in different things, I think it's an important part, and it's a responsibility to our community to make this work. I would rather see not having a railing on the front step and still be able to contribute to literacy here in the province and especially our community. Thank you, Your Worship.
Just a clarification thing, Mr. Spear, on that, is the second position that the province is now paying for, that's not a grant for 1 year, that's a permanent position that they'll now be paying, meaning that we don't for 1 year up this and then have to potentially cut it next year. Okay. Council, what's your decision on this one? The only thing I would recommend is we get rid of that plus sign. That 17,500 on this slide means that it could be higher. I think you should lock in a number on that, whatever the number is for council, but either way, it's a significant increase, but overall the budget to the library operationally should be going down as a result of the position saving. Council, what's your pleasure? Just to leave it at 17.5, get rid of that plus sign? Okay. All right, new items.
So council, these new items aren't new to this draft. These are new services that we talked about since day one that have been sitting there, but we've never really had a debate among council if you want them. So they haven't been increased between drafts. They were put in draft 1 or 2 and have gone there and have been brought out. So under admin services, there's an IT software upgrades. There was an additional product for accounting for $5,000 that put all our stuff on the cloud. There's some savings because we'll have to replace our server in the next couple of years, but one server is $5,000. This $5,000 will be an ongoing licensing fee. It's the same software vendor we've always used. I'd like it, but I can live without it.
You said you can live without it? No.
You can't live without it.
You
No,
said you,
No, I said it's not a necessity, but it would be good. There's other services it can provide in the future, but there's going to be extra costs. For instance, online billing of water bills could be included. So it'd be the first step towards that. There's payroll portals for employees and things that it allows. So it makes things a lot more 2023, if you will. But for our,
So,
go ahead.
so is there, does this equate to staff time saved? Will it make things more
I can't say, well,
efficient?
what it will really do for us is maybe it came into a priority during the pandemic. So people could work from home a lot easier, that our system isn't a great system to be able to sign in from afar. We can, but it doesn't work very well. So this will give us the opportunity to work at home. Sometimes I come in certain times of the year and work at the office on the weekends in order to do audit stuff and things. So it gives us flexibility to move out the stage. That's all it does, is it just gives us some more flexibility and savings on computer hardware. That stuff's a little more readily available. And on-time backups, I guess, real-time backups.
Councilor Ware?
Well, I supported 100%. And for an example, my son works in London, Ontario, and last month called me and said he was coming home for the winter, and he come home, set his office up. There's a tremendous growth in software as a service, SaaS, and everything's going to it. You're not going to be able to buy software in the next 5 years. It's all going to be a subscription service. And it's just phenomenal that he can run a department of First Canadian sitting in his bedroom upstairs in my house. That's the way it is.
So that gives me permission to be able to keep them in pajamas 2 days a week and work in my.
Go for it.
Well, around the office, we thought you were wearing them a couple of times.
What's going to change?
Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm seeing head nods. Everyone okay with that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have higher professional development. That's actually more aimed at council, that we're going to run over budget a little bit this year just because of the expanded number of council, and there's more opportunities too. That traditionally you only went to the UMNB once a year, but they seem to be doing a little more things. So it's just to provide you opportunities when you wanted to go.
So it's an increase of the larger council. Okay.
Now, this one is an important one. We'd like to add an additional staff member. We have announced it. We really do need it. There's no doubt about it. The stuff, we made our list of stuff we haven't gotten at for a long time, and we aren't going to tell you what it is, but nonetheless, things are being put behind. I know sometimes my emails are a week or better getting back to them, but it's just sometimes you gotta put your head down and get stuff done and not respond to the 100 emails you get a day. So having somebody that could help us out would be a tremendous asset. It'd be specifically for Paul and I. There's no doubt about it.
Councillor Harlan?
I'm 100% supportive of this. I think that there's efficiencies that could be done because you guys are doing things that somebody else could be doing. So I'm 100% supportive of this.
We're a bigger community. It's just that. I guess my only question with that is space. By the way, Mervin's office is amazing. Best office in town, I think. I don't know if you've seen it. It's the old music room. So the music room at the arena is now in the Cooney press box, or whatever they call it, Roger Cooney rather, memorial press box. But his office is the old music room, and it is a great spot for a rector. He literally is overlooking the ice service, and then you're in the arena, you see him in there. It's a great space for a rec director. Like, so kudos to
and built by Public Works.
yeah.
But yeah, certainly if you're through the town the day or happen to catch him, he's there Friday nights because of the movie nights, please drop in. He loves to show it off for sure.
Okay, let's go there now. So on that larger, so I guess back to my question though, because I digress. So where would you put that individual at town hall?
Yeah, so if you remember, we had a bylaw enforcement officer working out of
Yeah.
by Paul, if you know the office
Yeah.
space, and that person's, because it's a split role, the fire department's working out of here in the space up there, so we're sitting with an empty room already for it, just in case.
Any concerns over that one? I don't think that one came as a surprise to us, and it's important to note that due to the mill rates, which we're going to get into, Shamcook and Bayside is paying a percentage for general government. So naturally, the general government probably is going to expand a little bit as a result of that, because there is 50% more residents now that town hall, not for everything like roads and things, but there's a lot more traffic and calls since reform has happened. And I anticipate that's only going to increase as the members of Shamcook Bayside get used to realizing it's a resource for them. Okay. Economic development, Katie's Cove Inc.
Just a point of order, I believe, with this one, and just I believe that the request is for Charlotte County Archives is for 8,000, and Katie's Cove and Sunbury Shores is 15.
Looking at the minutes from the meeting, Mr. McEachern only asked for 5,000, the minutes we approved last night.
He reduced his, right? Sunbury Shores, it was originally, I believe, the original letter to staff, I think, was 15.
8, so they,
And Charlotte County Archives was 8 and change, wasn't it?
On page 10 of the agenda, it
Yeah.
specifies Charlotte County Archives line item is 8,000, and I was received notification from Mr. Cardy that it was 8,000.
thank you.
Thank you. Katie's Cove Inc. is correct at the 15. And all right, let's go through them line by line.
Yeah,
Kate?
just one other thing,
Yep.
Your Worship, I didn't put there, though. There is another line item there just for assistant grants in general that we haven't reduced, which is 18, I think. I just wanted to look. So in additional to those items, we also have an additional that probably should be up for discussion. It should be right here. There it is. Assistant grants for 2024 is actually $18,000. So on top of these, there's the general assistant grants, which we used to distribute them at 18,000. That probably should be added to that.
Yeah, I'd say that's not a new item though, right? That's consistent.
Well, yes and no. We've never broken up these other items outside of that
Oh,
before.
I got you. Okay, I just assumed the assistant grants were still there at the same level as previous, and these were above. Remember how we said the above and beyond request? Yeah, we'll go to you. What? Sorry, Mr. Spear, and then we'll go to Councilor Bennett.
I was just going to say that well, whatever council wants to do,
Gotcha.
it's just it's a significant increase. So if you're going to do 18 plus these, it's a big increase,
Good to,
as opposed to saying these, then cut that in half or something. It's all in bring to your attention.
fair point. Yep.
So sorry, just for clarification for council, we had asked the public for any requests over $3,000. That's where these requests came from. And you would put a policy in place for the assistance grants that they can only go up to $2,500 in requests.
See, that's where my head was at on the 18. Councilor Bennett, sorry to skip you.
Yes, I'm not sure, but shouldn't the Welcome Center be on this list as well? I know that we are gonna have a new operator of that this year, but the cost will probably likely be very similar to last year, right? And I don't see that on this, which probably should be.
Yeah, so we had no ask per se. I know that Explore St. Andrews, I was talking to Christy Kennedy today. I know it's coming up at their next meeting to discuss. Chamber of Commerce, just for everyone's information, has decided that they were getting out of the Welcome Center or Visitor Center business. So to me, I'm looking forward to hearing what Explore St. Andrews, little background on that, since it is relevant to the conversation. When council originally got the ability to administer the tourism accommodation levy, the whole idea would be that we give the tourism operators majority of the money so they can make decisions on the visitor information center. At the time, council of the day was debating, should we operate one or not? More and more people are on their phones. We don't need to get in that debate, but the whole idea is let's give them majority of the money. And if it's important, they'll figure out a way with that money to run it. And if they think that money could be spent on something better, then they can spend it on something better, but don't come back to us and say you want us to pay for it anymore. And I know that we did it as a one-time last year, but I don't think the expectation was that we fund the visitor information center. And just to be clear for council, and I know we've seen the number, but approximately how much do we give Explore St. Andrews a year?
You mean out of the tourism?
Out of the tourism accommodation levy, out of their
$50,000 to $300,000.
So they get $300,000 a year. So out of the 300,000, if 30 or 40,000 is worth it for a visitor center, to me, that's something that their budget should cover. But over to us, that they could come back and say, we're doing half, we want half, and then you guys will have to debate it. But that was the original intent of handing the money over, is they know what's best for their visitor. And we were trying to get out of that particular business. So there was councillors at the time early on that said, let's keep all the money, right? And then we could pay for stuff like that. But that was the debate back in the day. And the first year that agreement was done, the town of St. Andrews, I don't think paid anything for the visitor information center. Since the tourism accommodation levy came into effect, we only paid last year was the first time, but I might be wrong on that.
So through your worship, if you really look at the tourism accommodation levy, the first year of actual collection, the town provided our town's portion to them as well. So your 2020 collection actually went to them. You didn't actually, as council in the town, we didn't actually start collecting technically till 2021. And then, yes, you provided a grant to them last year.
So that's why that makes sense. So just because the concern was, hey, tourism with the pandemic is going to fall right down. Let's give them 100% so they can keep the fuel on versus the fund go down. So thanks for reminding me. But that's probably why we gave none that year as well. So that's why it's not on here though. And yeah, but there could be an ask to your point. All right. So the 18. So let's start with the Katie's Cove Inc. And was that for the accessible access? What was that? 50?
Actually,
That was reimbursement.
Actually, your worship, it actually a reminder to me, there's actually two separate requests.
Yeah.
There's 15,000. They take it like an ongoing commitment of 15,000 towards operations, but also $15,000 as a one-time to help towards the building of the washrooms down there, which is not reflected. Well, the trail to the washrooms. They extended the trail to go to the washrooms, the Van Horn Trail. This is the other 15,000.
Okay, and the concern that had been discussed previously on that is the fact that there is a lease agreement in place, but the land is owned by the hotel, and it was putting tax dollars into infrastructure on land that we don't own, which we've talked about. So council, over to you. I think we should isolate those two conversations because they are two very different conversations. I think you talked the 15,000 operational, and then you talked the 15,000 for the washrooms that are very lovely and completed. So we provide in-kind services right now for Katie's Cove Inc. And they'd like 15,000, and jog my memory from the presentation, that was to cover
Like cleaning, janitorial, some basic maintenance around. It's kind of their operating budget. It's a no fee and admittance there, so they need some funding to do operations, insurance.
Okay. So
I believe on the presentation from about a month ago, they broke it down a little bit better. I just don't have it with me. The clerk is looking for that to see if he can pull that
and
out.
what services do we provide them for now? Garbage removal?
Garbage removal and lawn mowing. And gate opening and closing.
Let's handle the operational first and we'll talk about the washrooms. Does that make sense? What's everyone's thoughts on increasing a budget for the operation of Katie's Cove? Pretty quiet group. I see it both ways. It's an improved product. It's being used more, like the paddling club's using it quite a bit. So I do think that there's an opportunity there, but I will say that the town of St. Andrews already is a major partner for what we do down there. So I can see it both ways. Councillor Hurdle.
I guess without being a hypocrite, I kind of have to have the same argument about Dock Road. It's technically private property and it's the same investment, and what's stopping them from locking the doors on that one too. So it is a concern that I have.
Yeah, I think it's public though, access to Dock Road. This could be, it's technically private land, so say the new ownership said somehow they're ripping up the lease, then, but let's be honest, in the same sense, this is operational that we're talking, we'll do the thing. Operational is only for that year anyway, so they cut services, you cut spend, right? Like that's your operational is only as good as long as it's active, right? So if that the worst case ever happened, we don't spend any more money there, right? So the operational, I think, is a little bit different on private property if it's publicly used.
So from the presentation, what I remember is that they were going to meet with the new hotel owners to talk about purchasing the land so that they can then become a charitable tax. Is that correct? Do we know where that things are at?
Long story short, no, we have no idea where it's at. So, but that'll be a longer process. I mean, it would take them several months to go through that.
Because that changes once they become a charitable tax, have a charitable tax number, then they're able to fundraise to a more significant degree than what they currently are doing, correct?
100%. There's a lot of people that would be probably a lot more likely to make donations if they're able to get a tax receipt. Like,
Right.
The only thing, your worship, I'd suggest people would be glad to help improve capital projects on the beach for year-to-year operations. People generally do not give as much, but that just be from my experience.
it is true. It's for capital projects where you're adding something in. It's easier to fundraise than day to day, especially if they think the municipality is going to pay for it or another level of government.
Keep in mind, they have a 20-year lease, right? It's not.
Right.
KCI has a 20-year lease.
Right.
So just throwing that out there. It's not the same as a unassumed road.
No.
Mr. Knopper.
Your worship, I can confirm, so from the minutes, it says, the town has provided support so year over year with lawn mowing, washrooms, garbage removal, technical advice and support with an operation of the sea gates. They have multiple challenges, including operations for the washroom, insurance and maintenance. They also have some capital challenges, including the road and parking upgrades. But the main requests that they are asking for from the town was continued in-kind support for garbage, lawn mowing, and operation of the gates, but to assist with the operation costs that were listed.
Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, worship. What was the cost to retrieve the gates a few years ago when they were washed away?
To repair them? Oh,
To
geez, it's
retrieve
like
them and
100
repair them, yeah.
Like, well, there's two steps. So there's I can't remember the exact numbers, between $80,000 and $100,000 went after that big Easter storm 2 or 3 years ago to reestablish that. And then one of the gates fell off at some point. There's another $5,000 or $10,000 to go fish it out and reattach it a couple of years later.
So I will say, council, just to caution you, is if you approve $15,000, it's officially probably going to be if you decide to decrease it, you're going to be cutting a budget in the future. You're going to be telling them we've decided not to. So this is operational. It's not like a washroom where it's one and done. You're kind of setting the expectation up. It's like lawn mowing. If you decided you weren't lawn mowing, you'd have to tell them that we're not going to provide that service. If you provide $15,000 this year, typically organizations like that would expect it to be reoccurring, just doesn't mean you can't say one time, but typically when you do something like that, it's the new standard. Just Councillor Heenan.
Yes, your worship and council, I think that it should be a one-time and it can be revisited as each and every year. It cannot be anticipated that it's going to be the 15,000 because we do not know what the status of Katie's Cove is going to be down the road. So setting precedent tonight and giving $15,000 each and every year, I don't see it happening. I would like to see it earmarked, as you would say, for 15,000 for this year, and we have to revisit each and every year. Thank you.
Mr. Knopper.
Thank you, worship. Just as a reminder to council, I know Councillor Harland asked KCI to provide a 5-year plan that would give council an opportunity to review what the requests are and their ongoing operations, maintenance, capital. So just it might be prudent to look at that going forward.
The struggle I have is that Katie's Cove in some ways is synonymous with St. Andrews. I mean, it's been part of our brand, I think, for a very, very long time. So I think it's difficult for us until we see that 5-year plan. I think it's difficult for us not to provide some support in terms of the ongoing operation. So I would support what Councillor Heenan has suggested, which is that we say it's this year. We're giving a $15,000 grant this year, and it has to be revisited once they are able to provide us with some further information around a strategic plan.
And I think a certain component, I know they're trying, it's not a lack of effort, but it's certain component we need to see sustainability, and charitable status is such an important part of it. So it's always going to be in limbo, and at no fault of the people that are involved. They have tried 3 times, I think. It's just they can't get it, and until they get it, it's always going to be coming back to the same people, whether it be the Kiwanis that have been very generous down there supporting projects, whether it be the town of St. Andrews, but it seems to be the same funding sources for any project. I will say, I think, and not to skew it, but I think they're asking for 15 for a washroom that's built. They're asking for 15 for operational. I think you just give them 15 as a one time, not 30. You give them the 15, and then we'll say we'll visit it next year. We're a partner. And I don't know what the servicing are on lawn mowing and garbage removal, but that's a pretty significant investment. I know it's in kind, but if they were to pay someone to do that, I can just tell you that it's quite expensive to do. It's a fairly large property that needs to be maintained with a steep bank. So I would dare say that with that amount of money, you'd be one of the major partners for the Cove. But with that being said, kudos to Katie's Cove Inc., because I've never seen so much potential in it as last year, the washroom facility going, and to tell them that, hey, we support you, keep going. I think there's some value in that as well, right? So just a quick show of consensus, if everyone's okay with 15, but, and is, I will go back to say if anyone wants to do 30 as well for the other issue, which is the washroom facility that they made the decision without us to put in, essentially. I'd say 15 or 30, the other option is 0, but 15,000, just a quick show of hands. Who thinks that? Does anyone think we should go to 30? Okay, I'm seeing $15,000 between the two requests. The next one is Charlotte County Archives. We did have an extensive presentation on that. 8,000 is the ask for students. I will say that since it is budget time, I felt like our commitment to the building was, I don't want to say underappreciated, I know it is, but it came across like we're your tenant. You have to do that for us. And we're like, I think if you look at it being the Charlotte County Archives, we are the only community that's making a significant investment in the Charlotte County Archives. And I didn't get it from the presentation. I don't know if that was the intention of it. I appreciate it. I know they're frustrated and they're trying to find funds, but if you look at our 5-year asset management plan, there's a significant amount of money between the courthouse and jail that has gone in, and we've done major repairs to that jail, like things like that helped keep roof. Yeah. So we are investing in the Charlotte County Archives, but with that being said, they're trying to find a way to show the courthouse in this particular, it says archives, but this is staff for the courthouse as well, right? I don't think we're necessarily, again, we'll meet with, we have that proposal, but we'll meet with Civic Trust, but it's kind of early to know what the summer will bring, but it's really around the corner. People are planning for next summer already. Council, over to you on the request for $8,000 from the archives. Councilor Biddle.
Thank you, Worship. And I absolutely agree with you in that one 100%. And I know that for us, there's always that friction between when we support an organization or an idea, it lets other organizations off the hook for supporting it too. And I'm certainly aware of that. I think there's room for and a necessity for the entire region to support this initiative because it does tell our collective story. But that said, it does tell our story. And when Councillor Heenan mentioned earlier about the lack of literacy in our area and becoming a significant challenge, so is the loss of our history, and so is the loss of our shared stories, and so is the loss of our collective identity, both for newcomers to the area and people who have been here and families that have been here for a long time. It's essentially at the core of who we are and how we perceive ourselves. And so, yes, I understand this is a specific ask for a specific thing, but from the archives, but it also allows them to more effectively tell our story. And I think that there's a lot of room for that growth, and I would like to support this organization to continue to do that. But I think there's room for them to continue to expand and to take on new initiatives too. And if we retract on our support for them at this point, I think it just makes it that much more difficult to tell the very important story of our community.
Thank you very much, Councilor Earl. Just for something for council to consider, because I put thought in this like all of you. We even pay their heat bill, is that correct? We pay the heat bill for the operation. There's other areas in Charlotte County, and I'm under the impression Macadam is interested in actually making some type of financial contribution to them. I don't know how much, but Macadam, the mayor, has expressed they are looking at doing it. What I'd almost say is that $2,500 comes out of our $18,000 that we have. There's $2,500 from this community. Go to Eastern Charlotte, go to St. Stephen, go to the other places in Charlotte County, and they all contribute as well. And then they can get to an operational number because, again, we're paying their heat bill, we're doing their capital improvements. We're here, but we think other municipalities in Charlotte County, if it is truly the Charlotte County Archives, Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue gets funding, I believe, from almost every municipality. They should as well, is the way I look at it. That's just my own personal opinion. I might be entering debate here, but bears always get to do that during budget, just to be clear. Over to you if you think that that's something that is a feasible option versus eventually. I know that it's hard to say no to all these projects and all these asks, but it's adding up. Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I was just going to ask that same question. They had mentioned during the presentation that they were asking 3 other communities, again, to contribute 1/3. But I wasn't clear at the moment as to whether that was 8,000 from each of the 3 communities, or if they were asking for 1/3 of that $8,000.
From my understanding from a previous presentation, someone correct me if I'm wrong, they need about $60,000 to operate per year between what they, I think it's an additional 60. I could be wrong, but it was additional 60,000. I remember seeing one presentation that they need to raise every year. Does that make sense? Did anyone remember seeing that? I could be wrong.
That
Don't
tends to
put
go,
that on
yeah,
CHGO.
that tends to go for their permanent or semi-permanent staff, the part-time person that works there, and plus their normal operations. This 8,000 was aimed more for the students. as
So it'd be on
mentioned
top
earlier.
of their 60. Okay. Councilor Bennett.
Yes, Your Worship. As I recall too, we discussed options like the MLAC grant money that's available through our local MLA. And I do believe that he said last year that they weren't successful in getting any of that C grant money. But I do know that, like, especially if, you know, from the mayor's office, we sent a letter to our MLA requesting, you know, a portion of that C grant money go to this project. It can go a long way for them getting some of that additional funding for the summer students. So maybe rather than just using our budget, maybe we can reach into somebody else's budget.
That's good suggestion. It's the seed program. So yeah, I will say that from my understanding, not to digress, but there's a number of organizations in St. Andrews that used to get that and they're not getting it now. I can talk about my personal day job. Kingsbury Garden doesn't get it anymore. I don't think Minister Island gets it anymore. So that there's, yeah, so there's, and I don't know if it's been moved or cut back without us knowing, But nonetheless, I've heard from multiple parties in this community that they're unsuccessful with the seed program. And it makes me, to your point, we could send that letter. I don't know. From my understanding, the seed program is something that the MLA actually administers, but I know it changes year to year. I know that they changed the whole policy where before they gave it to the student and then the student picked where they went to, they're back to giving it to the organization, which I think is the right call. Not to digress, but the student before they come with a golden ticket saying I'm free work, they interview you. And that's not how the real world works, right? Like literally kids come in with their hat on backwards being like, I got the golden ticket. I'm wondering what you'd do for me if I worked here. So they've got it right, but since then I'm not seeing much in the community at all, and that's multiple organizations in St. Andrews have come forward and say I'm not getting one now. So a letter like that could come very, very much in handy. So council, back to our, that's a suggestion. I think we could do that. Everyone think that's a good idea to help support them. Over to you. Do you want to do the 8? Do you want to do a portion and encourage them to go to other municipalities for portion? Councillor Hurdle.
Sorry to have 2 times to speak, but I just want to
Okay.
I request council to consider this from another point of view. We can see that St. Stephen right now has done a very successful job at investing in their history. Very excited for the Canada First Basketball museum that's opening up in St. Stephen. A significant investment. It's going to be a fantastic addition to their story. And if another municipality decides to assist the Charlotte County Archives, we may see them go to that community as well to set up shop there and to set up their home in that base. And we'll be willing to see that transition happen and lose them in this area. And I just pass that back over to you guys.
Sorry, Councillor, just clarify. So who would switch over? They would switch to there?
Well, I mean, possibly if they have the room for them. And if they, for example, I'm not saying that that's definitely an idea, but who knows? Like if a town says, well, yeah, we'll sponsor you 100%. And it's not St. Andrews, would we potentially be willing to walk away from the organization?
Councillor Harlan?
So if I remember correctly from the presentation, I think this 8,000 was specifically for the tours that are done at the jail, correct? And what I remember is that the discussion was St. Andrews supports the hiring of students at the Blockhouse and at Sheriff Andrews. Do we have students at Sheriff Andrews?
We don't pay for either of those. The federal government pays for the Blockhouse, the province of New Brunswick pays for the Sheriff Andrews. So those slides were, and I don't think it was intentional, they were a little misleading because the town of St. Andrews doesn't actually provide those finances.
So
at all.
so who provides oversight for the students? Because students have to report to somebody.
Norma Stewart for years.
Okay, so Norma provides oversight to the students who provide services to the Blockhouse and the Sheriff Andrews. Because what I think I remember from the presentation was that this cost is to provide the supervision of the students. It requires some staffing time to provide oversight to the students. I'm pretty sure I remember that correctly. I do wonder if we could provide some support. If they're getting funding for students, can we extend staff, municipal staff, to provide oversight? Could they report to municipal staff so that it doesn't become as onerous on the archive staff? Is that something that we could provide in kind?
Probably not a good idea because we are employee overseeing another organization's staff. So, I mean, I'm not saying to do this, but make more sense for us to actually hire the students. I'm not saying to do that and oversee them than trying to have our employee oversee somebody else's staff.
And they do have a full-time employee to oversee the staff over there, right?
At the archive?
At the archives, they have a archive manager who's closer hands-on and would probably understand the day-to-day better than our staff. I don't think they were looking necessarily for that sport. They were looking for student funding. They felt they could manage that in-house, the management of it. I will say, is there any charge to access this? Because if it's a valued attraction, you think you could charge $2 or $3 and come up with a few $1,000s to offset some of this as
It's
well.
by donation.
It's by donation, and they disclosed how much they collected last year in donation. And I forget what the dollar amount was, but I remember I was quite impressed and thinking that they probably collected more by donation than they probably would have if they charged a couple of dollars for entry.
Yeah. some people would just drop $20 in, right? That pays for quite a few entries. All right, council, we need to make a decision. The ask is $8,000 for staffing in addition to the lease agreement. I made a proposal that we give portion of it, and it's part of the operation that they do, and it's a Charlotte County organization, so I don't get to vote in this case. So who would like to give them $8,000? Show of hands. How many would like to give them less than 8,000 but give them something? Okay, this is like going to be like a bidding war. I originally proposed 2,500. Just a quick conversation. Does anyone think it should be more than that, or do they think that is that an up? Did you vote for 8,000 though? Okay, I was gonna say because you're eliminated by that. So does anyone think half of it, $4,000? Quick show of hands if you think $4,000 is fair. That's going to be as close as I get to consensus. Thank you, council. It's good to talk to you on a late evening. Next one is Sunbury Shores. 5,000 is the ask. And specifically, I know we got multiple presentations. Originally, it was there were some capital repairs that they were going to do. This particular $5,000 though would go towards just general operations.
Program. Last year, they'd asked for extra money for a computer lab, I think it was, at Sunbury Shores, and they raised that otherwise, and this was just for operations, try to keep going with the programming.
And in the past, we were giving them 2,500 or 3,000. They were part of the assistance grants. They're asking for an increase of about $2,000. If you do this, I almost wonder, council, if you don't knock that 18,000 down to 16, just to save money. Just because that's something that you always took out of that money anyway. So it's a way to still give them more, but not save the taxpayer a little bit of money. I was just a proposal because it was always at least $2,000 out of that for Sunbury Shores.
What she's talking about, Deputy Mayor, is we have, in addition to these specific requests, we have $18,000 in assistance grants also for other organizations. So the mayor's just suggesting we drop that.
And I guess my other question for you is was the archives always taken out of that as well? So like, you know what I mean? Like you might give these organizations more, but you might be able to knock that down to 15,000 to soften a $3,000 of spending, right? So it's not as big of an increase, just putting it out there for you. So $5,000 for general operations. Does anyone have any, I know we got a presentation. Does anyone have any further questions or comments on that? Councillor Blanchard.
And just to clarify, that was an ongoing central contribution now, right? This is going to be something that we were going to commit to year over year. That's what they were asking for.
I dare say that we could just say one time like we did the other one, and then we debate it again next year.
Well, I think the ask was year over year, and we confirmed that at the end of the
Now, I would like
presentation.
that source of funding. There's no doubt about it, but
I think if you gave him 5,000, I'd still say thank you. Yeah, over to you, council, though. What do you want to do here? How many Councillor Heenan.
I would support the 5,000.
Okay, how many people would like to see them get $5,000 from the municipality? How many people would like to see a little bit less than that? How many people don't know still, because we have to talk about it more. I think it was 3-3 there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 4? Was it
4, 3?
Sorry? 4.
Your first request was 4 votes.
So was there 4 against for less? So
It was, well, you had said 5,000. 4 people requested 5,000.
Okay, and 4 people don't want 5,000 as a result.
No, 3 people raised.
Okay, so let's just do a quick one again then, because not everyone. How many people would like to see $5,000? Hold your hand up. How many? Oh, there's 5. Okay, $5,000 for this budget. And again, but just to be clear, if anyone's watching this is for the draft budget. It is not approved. Okay, so it doesn't mean we want to debate everything, but until we pass this budget, these funds are not
Allotted.
not technically. This is for a draft budget. And I think it's very important that we make that clear. But in the same sense, council, I really don't want to revisit every issue again. That's why we're here late tonight, right? So that takes us through that slide. Okay.
Yep. Oh, we're gonna drop the 2,000 off the assistance grants from 18 to 16.
Let's dock that down to 5,000, council, because you've knocked money off Sunbury Shores and the archives. You've knocked over probably $5,000 off that. I think you can knock that down to 15. I guess I'm being the penny pincher here, but does anyone think that taking that down to 15 makes sense? It's still a bigger budget than last year as a result. Okay, thank you. Yeah, from 18, because we literally 5,000 of that went to those two organizations last year. Do I need a motion to keep going, Mr. Knopper? Or are we okay? Because we kind of got consensus before. it's
You
two-thirds vote.
basically gave consensus.
Okay, thank
for it,
you.
so.
New items for 2024. I don't mean to take it over, but the Ross Museum, we kind of agreed that we weren't going to open this Christmas because we were going to open it for next one. I think I had consensus from council on
did.
that one. I don't think we need to revisit that unless someone wants to.
Nope.
Recreation, we have a new rec director. He's doing a fabulous job. In order to keep doing program, he needs resources. Very, very simple. The recommendation between him and Mr. Spear, I'm sure you've gone through the list with him, is that he needs about an additional $46,000.
Yeah. Plus 8,000 for the day camps, but the day camps will be self-paying.
It goes back to my thing about doing a study. If you're gonna put these people in the position, you gotta give them resources to do their job, right? Does anyone have any concerns over the 46,000?
Nope.
It was in the draft of the budget. I'm not seeing any. We're gonna keep, I hate to rush this. Tell me if I'm going too fast, but yeah, go ahead.
Just want to ask a question about the 46,000. Was that including the item I remember, the outdoor video equipment for like 20 grand?
Is that the outdoor equipment included?
No, that was in capital, which I think.
Oh, fair
Yeah,
enough. Thank you.
yeah. There's new requests, actually, I should say that there's a section missed out of, it was in your council package, I think, new items of request, but didn't make the slideshow, now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Was there another question over here that I saw hand? put down, sir?
Yeah, just the success of these programs will be outlined in the monthly staff report.
Yeah, he provides them now, so we'll just ask him to maybe include how much participation he's getting. Because it'd be good, just the sticks and pucks one, not to go too deep, has been quite successful, so we're glad to see that. So we'll make sure he highlights his on that. Thank you.
Okay, quick question on day camp. What does that look like?
So what, it was in the proposal, we gave you in draft one, but he's gonna
Yeah.
charge $140 a week for 8 hours a day to be upstairs at the arena here for 8 weeks.
For 8 weeks. I
Okay.
think when you look at some challenges we have around childcare and daycare, I think that's a wonderful asset. The fact that he's got a program where revenues offset costs, it's could be a significant win for the community, but I don't envy him having to take that.
No.
And you center 3/4 of a full-time position. Want to speak to that, Mr. Spear?
Sure, so for years, the youth center always had a 2 3/4 positions. So Ms. Lord's been there, but we hired Sandy Alfred earlier this year to take over the 3/4 position, but he's doing a great job. And it actually, it's not just for the youth center, but it's actually to give more help to Mervyn. So it's really just his time is being split between there, and the three of them work closely together to do all this different programming for youth. So it's really to supply this person with a full-time guaranteed position, which would include benefits, would be the big thing too. So it's a bit of an increase, but it's probably worthwhile. Back to the mayor's comment about supplying resources, which includes human resources to execute all these things.
Council, over to you. Significant investment, obviously, but any concerns? Seeing none. Okay. Oh, Councillor Harlan, sorry.
Can I just ask a question about new items in 2024? The digital sign, it's not here. Did it get lost? Has it been cut?
I don't think so. I think in my slideshow, there was a section called new items that we had, and I think on the longer budget, it's still in there.
Okay, so just because
I
it's
I
here,
apologize for that. As we were talking, I realized there's a couple of things that we could go back to if you like, or talk about next meeting.
Let's talk about them next. We should talk about them though, because we
Yeah.
should get consensus. Yeah, is there a lot there, or is it just,
6 or 7 items.
you want to talk about them, Council, right now? Do you want to get through this?
I do want to get through it. I'm unfortunately, I'm not going to be here for the next meeting. So can I just put my plug in now for the digital sign? I think it's critical. I think it's really, I think the town has, there's been a loss of communication because we lost the old sign at the arena, although that wouldn't cut the need in today's world. But I think that people are looking for information. Not everyone is on social media. I hear it time and time again from seniors. They want their information from the newspaper or from the radio. and they're looking for signs. They're not looking for it on the internet. When we had the fire, there were a couple of people, tourists, who knew something was up, but they didn't know what. And there was no way for us to communicate that to them unless they were on our social media platforms. I think in today's age, it's critical that we have a digital sign that can advertise events, but also provide information, critical information, like when we are in a crisis. So I really hope we don't lose that from the budget.
All right, so that version of the budget.
Just
Gordon,
council,
you
just
wanna take us
to
through the items?
point it out really quick, is on page 4 of the longer of your package. All those items, there's a few items we just did discuss tonight. But there's a few that were missed in the slideshow, so I apologize for that. But we can review them next time.
A
They're not-
raise for CAO, is that on that? Is that one?
What's that?
Is it the raise for the CAO that you left
Yeah, that's
off?
right.
Yeah.
No, that's in the really small print in one font.
Go ahead through them if you want, Mr. Spear.
Okay, so thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for picking that up, Councillor Harland. So the silent generator is needed for the movie thing. It's about $4,000. It's to be able to move things. It also could be used, for instance, for when we had the thing that the deputy mayor.
Truth
headed.
and reconciliation.
Consideration, thank you, be used for that for microphones. So there's different areas for that. We've talked about the pickup truck, the plate compactor for public works. As you know, we have that little roller, but it moves at about 2 miles an hour. So sometimes there's things that are outside. It also can't be used for certain materials. So public works would think that is a worthwhile invention. It is a B, possibly a C, but it's a piece of equipment that would be useful. The roof flashing, we've already talked about. The dog park signs and benches, we committed to that last year. You see, we're putting up the fencing as we speak. They've already raised the money for that. And so it's just to finish with the signage, a little bit of gravel and garbage cans and things like that.
I got a question on how much of the approximately the benches be, just because I gotta think the memorial program, people that love their animals would love to have a memorial bench in memory of their dog at the dog park. I think that would be an easy sell for somebody nowadays and save the taxpayer money. How much would that be roughly?
Depending on the quality, the ones we use downtown run about
Grand.
$3,000 now, but maybe wouldn't need such high old style look that we'd put along the front street, for instance.
Through your worship, the ones that we put on the trail recently in the last couple of years were about $2,500 a piece. And they're composites material.
Yeah, I know, but still to implement a program like that where you could have on a bench 5 memorial plaques for $500 to remember dog. It would shock you how quick you could raise for the municipality a few $1,000s doing that. I gotta think a memorial bench program, even if you, like I said, had on the back of a bench 4 or 5 different dog names in memory of, like, I gotta think people would love to do it for their pet and it's there for the length of the bench, but just an idea to save some money.
No, we'll certainly put that out to your point. It's to the point people are asking to donate benches. We're losing places to even put them. We have to finally tell them, no, we have nowhere to add benches without.
And maybe
tripping
it's not
over-
for a dog. Maybe it's just a
Yeah.
memorial bench period for somebody that their family is looking for a spot. We've got a new asset in town, and maybe they were a dog lover that they're.
But they might not have a dog.
Yeah.
They might want to do a bench.
So anyway, I just think there's an opportunity to save a few dollars there.
Okay, great. The grid rack for the fire department will actually be paid, we think, by the Dunn Foundation money we received earlier, so that can come off the budget. There's a video sign that Councillor Harland was talking about. It is on our thing. We'll have a discussion once we put it together, because Terry thinks he can do something nice like the old place signs, but I think like you, a video sign would be much more efficient. You could even put ads on it and charge people a little bit, but putting an LED sign in St. Andrews will draw a lot of criticism. So it'll be to figure out which is the right way to go. But it is in the budget, and I think we got to work one way or the other towards that, to figure out to date. We did talk about the commercial skate sharpener in the past. I think it's a good investment, and if we charge for it, it'll be self-paying within a couple of years. The video cameras, I think, made an earlier part of the presentation for
Yes, they were.
$15,000, so I didn't forget that. The exercise park should be, we need some rubber matting for it. Some of the higher stuff that people are being raised up, they recommend just better if they fall, because there's brick there, if they fall, there's something soft to land on essentially. We had a little bit of trouble sourcing it, to be honest, and we've come up with a foam replacement that we hope will do that can be poured on it essentially. But it's highly recommended by the manufacturer. That should have been included. And then the outdoor movie system for $22,000 is there. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I will say back to recreation, we had deferred two items that would be quite time savers. One was a portable stage. So if you remember this year, we set up the stage in Market Square, then had to leave it there. Well, there are ones that basically trailers, you go in, drop a couple of whatever that holds them in place and go on your merry way, then you can remove them. We'd planned on them for next year, but I'll just remind you of them. The other is portable bleachers. That our bleachers are a little bit poor shape. I'll see if I've still got them in the system. I want to say they're $30,000 for the pair of them. The staff plan on deferring it for a year, but you know, there'd be efficiencies as I talked about in the staff report. Public Works is spending a lot of time doing stuff that's unusual Public Works time. And so stuff like that can be used to speed up that process. So it's a one-man job instead of a four-man job would be appreciated. But like I said, it was something we had deferred. We think we can fundraise or not fundraise for it, but find grants for a lot of that stuff. But I'm sorry to throw that at the last minute, but I'm just saying it's there.
Can I be the meanie again? I guess I'm gonna go back to the outdoor movie system. I love the idea of it. I'm assuming there's not a lot of red ants where this will be viewing at Centennial Park, but I just wanted to challenge council to think about that. If the silent generator is for that purpose mainly,
Yes.
You're spending $26,000 on outdoor movies. We have a theater in here that we're just getting program going that is not weather dependent and it's underutilized right now. I'd be really interested to run a summer movie series and see how many people come out consistently to movies before you spend $26,000. And I will also say that it gets dark in the summer really, really late in July. I assume you need it pretty dark to run these movies. I don't think this will necessarily be as family friendly as you think because of the time of night. I just want to propose that you're putting $46,000 into new programming. You add that up at $72,000 additional dollars towards recreation on top of trails and everything that you're investing in recreation. I'm just challenging you. I know they're all great ideas, but we're pretty much saying yes to everything tonight. I'm not criticizing. It's just at some point, you really got to scrub a budget and get it back to something like, I don't mean to lecture, but you know what I'm getting at here is $26,000 when you have a theater that's underutilized. Is that a good spend? That's just a question I have for you. Councillor Ware.
I'll comment on that. I'm old enough. I went to
Drive-ins?
drive-ins.
I heard about those at the archives.
It was hard to get home before midnight. And, you know, as far as a family event, it doesn't cut it for young children. And I don't know what, where you cut off young, but it's a lot of money. We can't get the movie theater going. I can't imagine, you know, we might get a bunch of teenagers out there carrying on, but I don't think there'd be a lot of families out there, particularly in July, early August, when it gets dark at 9:30, 9:45. So again, I'm thinking the same way you are.
That's scary. Council, maybe it's just, again, it's 46,000 plus this. I just I would love to see a summer movie theater, a series in our theater. It's not weather dependent. Sell concessions there, give it a go and see how the community, and if everyone's going, maybe it's a great idea to move it outdoors. I just question that much money for a movie series. And you have Huntsman that has a theater as well. Yeah. Over to you, council. Sorry to be the guy that's.
I think Councillor Neal had a question or
Councillor
comment.
Neal.
I just want to go back to my last question. Is this 22,000 part of this 46,000 or are these two separate
No,
things?
Two separate.
Okay. So what is included in the 46,000? Do we know that?
Yeah, Mr. Spear probably have a more detailed list, but it's primarily programming, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. Give me 2 minutes to go, pull out, go file on it.
Sorry, is Canada Day within that 46,000? No, I was gonna say, this is incremental 46,000.
Brunswick Day, there's a trails jamboree we're gonna be doing. It's essentially creating extra events. I'll just pull it out here. 5 minutes. Rec director's
And a question for you as well on that is the town, I know it's a bit of a, because of our position, but is he able to apply to explore St. Andrews for events? Like if he's creating an event that brings traffic to town, I would assume that he should be able to tap into the festival and event spend just like everybody else. He's creating events.
I guess, but like everybody else, your worship, he needs to start planning a lot of the stuff now, so he'll apply, so there could be savings in the future. But until he knows from their spend, which will be March till April, some of the stuff will go off the table.
I would support us suspending the outdoor movie system and look at it again next year to see what kind of uptake we have around the movie theater or the movie theater that is being proposed in our current.
I'd love to see the
Yeah.
idea just be indoors for this year to see what the response is in the community. And it could be, again, earlier times for all
Families.
ages.
Yep.
How many people would like to see that? Yeah, suspend it. Yeah, sorry, to your point. All right, I'm seeing consensus that we're gonna hold that one. Back to the 46. Do people want to dive in that a little bit more, or do you want to have the flexibility to come back through staff reports? Yep, Councilor Blanchard.
Does that include the silent generator or just the movie?
Sorry, that's
The gener-
that would be both of it. It would be a $26,000
Okay, 'cause the
budget.
generator has other uses as well, I guess is what I've heard.
Valid
right?
point. Valid
I'm
point.
just, I don't know.
How many times would you be able
Can
to
we
use the silent
separate the
generator?
silent generator?
Probably at least half a dozen times, and it lasts for years. The problem is you can't get access to them. They're not available like the rent even. We tried to rent one, we had to get a gas one.
But even the Christmas tree ceremony, to have that there when we light the lobster trap tree, there is uses for that. I'd be actually fine leaving that in for events, so he would have the flexibility to put it on a trail system and actually have a PA system so people could hear you. I know, obviously, it benefits you greatly over the megaphone, Deputy Mayor Hackagee, right? So I will say though, the generator didn't take away. It was a regular generator and it didn't take away from it either, but it was, you had to run
That's
a lot
due,
of
that
cords.
was due to staff putting an extra
Running a lot
long
of
cord.
cords and hiding it.
Yes, he did a
Kept it
great
All right,
job.
Somewhat
Council,
quiet.
just quick consensus, leave the $4,000 generator. Okay, that's in. We're off that one. Is there anything else on this list? Mr. Spear, is that everything now?
The only other thing, the last one is the $5,000. It has three, but it's now priced at 5 for fire protection system an alarm system at the Public Works Garage, which I think is a necessity.
I think it is nowadays as well. All right, and do we want to get into the budget for the programming, or does everybody feel like we've covered enough for tonight? You've just cut it essentially and
I
Third.
think we leave it alone because this is, we're
going to handcuff them.
yeah, we're starting this off and we need to, if it's not successful or there's something we can cut back on next year, we can do that. But I mean, we're breaking new ground here. And I think that the programming is probably, because we want to attract youth in our community, so yeah, I'd leave it alone for this year.
I will say the wins that he's starting to put on the board, the feedback has been very, very positive about his efforts. So just because we might want to, for the amount of money, hold off on the movie night for a year, it doesn't take away from all the great work he's doing. And I love the fact that he's coming with new ideas, and we may not go for all of them, but I hope he continues to bring them forward. And if council goes ahead with the 46,000, it's a pretty good indication to say, tell him to keep going, right? So. Yep.
Just to let Mr. Spear off the hook here, I can wait for a staff report for those events.
Yeah, he had provided a report. I just don't have it hooked up to the internet right now, so I can email you in
Maybe
the
when you
morning.
guys get home tonight, you can talk and.
That's right. What time's the pub open, do your worship?
All right. A small thing of mill rates. So the first slide is just to remind us what they were, right?
Correct.
So right now the cost sharing is 15% for the former LSDs and 85% for the former community of St. Andrews.
Correct.
Okay, and based on assessments that should have been on the model should be 32.
Well, 1/3, 2/3.
Yeah, roughly 3268, I think is the technical answer.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone need to review that slide? I think we've all seen those numbers before, right? So tax revenue assumption. Unless you have
Well-
something you want to add, I don't mean to rush it, but I'm trying to
No.
rush it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the tax revenue assumption, so I think there's tax rates that I showed on here, but those were just basically keeping the same cost sharing models to the rates that I got there, and it was in my longer report. And so what, if we go to the last slide, Paul? So at this point, it's a philosophical discussion. Staff have no say in on the mill rates, but the original intent of the local government was reform, that there would be cost sharing among all the new communities at a higher level based on the assessment rate. Like free wrongfully, that was what was the announced intention of it. So the only restriction that they put in place last year was that year over year, the tax rate couldn't go up any more than 5 cents or a 5 cents difference. So let's say, just for shits and giggles, that we raise the tax rate of St. Andrews by 10 cents. We could raise the tax rate of the Bayside Shamcook subunit by 15. It's not the intent for anyone watching. I'm just saying, just to give you a thing, but that it's still looking at the nickel. Within your package, I think on the third page in, there's a thing called the allocation by subunit. And that was just me doing it it's on page 5 of 47. That was just me putting figures in order for discussion purposes. So as you go through there, and this isn't exact, there's a much longer province of Brunswick worksheet that I'll need to fill out to make sure everything balances. But based on a sharing of the shared services, or an allocation of the shared services of 80-20, so that's general government, economic development, right now is based on the assessment base. The fire has always been based on the assessment base, even before the communities were joined. It was always, the allocation was always based on how much the tax assessment was. The medical on 80-20. Then heritage and culture and recreation and youth community services on 80-20 split. Based on that, it would give us a tax rate on the internal the old St. Andrews of about $1.07, but it would increase the tax rate to Bayside and Shamcook to 59.9, which is about 4 1/3 cents. Again, that's just for discussion purposes, based on increasing the share a little bit more. It's around that 5 cent. Talking to some of the other treasurers around, a lot of them are still going on that assumption, but they haven't passed their budgets yet. So their councils haven't approved that. But that's what kind of the goal is in the long term, at least until the council says it isn't the goal. So I give it back to council to let me know your preference.
All right. So I guess my first question would be, and you may not have an answer to this, but so based on last year's about 15% is what the LSDs, how does that compare to other communities across New Brunswick for last year? Is that a standard? Are we on the low side? Or are we on the high side?
I want to say we're on the low side. I really don't know. St. Andrews is a little unique because the tax base of the original municipality is still a significant portion of the total assessment, where places like Eastern Charlotte, where the original municipalities are way less than 50% of the combined new assessments. So we're skewed a little bit. I can call around in the morning and see if I can find out how many more are like that, if they even figured out last year. Because if you remember, the facilitators came up with the tax rates last year, I actually worked backwards. It was a really convoluted formula. I showed it to you early, where they came up with the rates, so that doesn't work. So we're just gonna arbitrarily drop off X amount of dollars off the total sharing in order to make it work out to the nickel. And so I, as they say, reverse engineered everything to work out the 15%. So others may not be as easy to tell me or haven't done that math potentially.
So my next question is related to your forecast in this. So we know police services potentially will go down.
Yes.
Is it safe to say that the reason that is going down is because Shamcook Bayside is switching over potentially to a one model for all of us, one price?
And yes, in that specific, absolutely, because
So Shamcook Bayside technically is the one saving us that money because they were paying double what we were paying for half the population. To me, that is automatic money that Shamcook Bayside has saved almost themselves. Like it's and again, I know I'm just hear me out on this, is they were paying double, and that is why their mill rate is projected to be higher than the town of St. Andrews when you do the model. But this is a direct savings as a result of them being part of our community. So I think that should almost give credit to them. Does that make sense? Like, because we'd still be paying the same amount St. Andrews with or without them. It's just when they do the calculation and kind of convert us over to us, they realize, whoever calculated realize that they're paying a lot more. Is that safe to assume?
well, I guess between the two contracts, so they weren't paying twice as much in total dollars, but they were paying the same amount with half the population.
Yes, or per capita. or
Yeah,
whatever it
so
was,
per
yeah.
capita, they are paying twice as much. And so what they're able to do, so we get 3 officers under old or under the MPSA. And they were paying about the equivalent of 3 officers, but now with the combined contract, they said, well, no, you only need 2 additional officers. So pre-amalgamation, we were paying for 6, but they've realized we only need 5 in this area. And so there is a saving of about 1 officer.
So when I had one-on-one meetings with the new counselors, we'll call them, I hate saying new because you've been here longer, but
Yeah.
one of the opportunities we found to make this transition or whatever the end game is would be, we talked about the fact that they're half the population, we're getting the same service. If we saved a position on an officer, that would significantly help them get closer to that ratio. So I'm just wondering, are we calculating that in this 20%, or are we just saying that the whole municipality saved that money like St. Andrews did too? I guess that's my, I'm not trying to ask, I'm not doing a very good job.
I think so. What I did with it was, so I think, does everyone understand the concept of local services versus shared services still? So for the first quarter, I calculated the policing as a local service, then everything after the 1st of April, when we're hopefully going to our new contract, is a shared service. That probably confused you more than it helped, but nonetheless.
So I guess council, just for consideration, is maybe this is a debate year to year and all of us get around the table and we say, this is what the residents that live in Shamcook Bayside should pay. This is what the old town should pay. To me, the end game, and the only end game I can think of, is the end game that's projected by the province of New Brunswick, is the rural areas pay more as a mill rate than the old town of St. Andrews. That is what the projections are. And we've seen the reasons per capita. RCMP is double, roads are double, garbage removal is double per household. And that is why it gets to that number. But I really envision a day in which this whole council is sitting around a table and we're truly one council. And we're not saying Shamcook Bayside, you pay this, Old St. Andrews pay that. And the only number that I can see where that is a compromise, where everyone can move forward as one community, is we actually get the mill rates someday, not this year, to the same amount. So if the community gets faced with a new bill, we all pay for it. If we have a savings, we all pay for it. And to me, that's the end game. And if we never do it, it's going to be different ward councillors arguing, because everyone that's in the old St. Andrews, you will be a ward councillor. You'll be a ward councillor of your ward then. You'll be arguing over what to pay. That's the only end game I say, that once we're all the same level, then we, if we need 1 cent, we all get 1 cent. We need 2 cent savings, we all get 2 savings. That's the only path forward I can see where we don't. And again, it won't be at this council table. I don't think maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we're going to get there over this term. There'll be somebody else at this table, certainly in this chair, that will be, getting to that point. But I don't see another path forward other than it'll be always neighbor versus neighbor. That's just my thoughts on it. Again, I don't want to get there in year 1. So just to be clear, I think that's the path forward, because to me, even though there's services that cost more, I don't see a world in which Shamcook Bayside should have a higher mill rate than the town of St. Andrews. I know assessments are higher in town. I know there's all those arguments, but the minute that we're all one and we're all the same is the minute that this stops. And I don't know if anyone sees it that way, or maybe they don't. I know no one wants to pay more, but that is a better model than what was cascaded to us by the province of New Brunswick. Councillor Ware.
I'll just comment on it because I was in the meetings with the facilitator. And my recollection was it was either he was going to phase it in over 3 years or 4 years. I'd have to go back and look at my notes to be sure. And so, you know, they played with the rates, but that was his rationale. And police thing, we weren't getting any police services other than emergency 911 calls. So, you know, it is difficult. I know they envision that there may always be a rural rate and an urban rate, but I would like to reach that utopia where the rates are the same. I don't know if it's possible or not. Probably not in my lifetime, but I'm old, so.
It means a lot for you to say that, though, because to me, that's the only path forward where we are one community. I really, and again, I know there's different services and things like that, but we do know that living in rural areas, there is increase in the cost because of like you see it in the numbers. But it means a lot to me that you'd actually say that. And I don't, like I said, I don't expect to necessarily get there in my time as mayor, but if everyone knew that, if I lived in a rural area, and I saw the increases, I want to say, when does this stop? At least then you have an answer of when that stops, right? And it's better than the provincial model that's cascaded. It wouldn't be the LSDs paying 32%. It wouldn't be, it would be less. But it's a number that we could all, I think, live with and move ahead as one community. And again, sorry to keep repeating myself. Councillor Harlan.
I guess I'm an eternal optimist, and I think that you will see it in your lifetime. I think that is the only path forward. I think one of the ways that we will work toward getting there is by having our the revision of our municipal plan, so that people can see the vision of the new St. Andrews, which includes Bayside and Shamcook, so that we build together, we build a vision for what our community is. And I think that will start to lay the path forward to getting to that point where we're not dickering about the mill rate. I hope that we might be able to get there before our terms end. I will remain hopeful that we can, because we will be working on our municipal plan. And I think that's where the real engagement comes in with our community members, both in the old St. Andrews and in the rural areas. And I am really looking forward to that process beginning, but I stay very hopeful, and I think that's the only path forward.
Appreciate that. And I will say that when I was pretty vocal during the reform process, and I actually got accused by a government official as fear mongering. I wasn't. Those are real challenges that we are facing right now. We see it in the numbers. The productive model by the province is significant increases for Shamcook Bayside. It's not something I grabbed out of the air. It's a fact. Councillor Ware.
I'm surprised you said that, Annette. You know how old I am. I told you the other. But I think the other thing that's going to happen over the next couple of years is Mr. Spear is going to refine the methodology of how he allocates costs and that type of thing. And you know, it's a complicated process, and it will get refined, and we will reach the point where we're very comfortable plugging the numbers in and coming up with a number that the process is there, the calculations are there. They happen to be equal, fine. If they're not, we're very comfortable with where everything arrives. So it is a process. It's not, it's gonna happen, but it's just how long it takes to do.
So both your comments are very fair. I guess it's a complicated question, but what the province said 3 to 4 years, it does not have to be 3 to 4 years. No one is holding us accountable to that. We could do whatever we want. I guess the 5 cents still is the only rule we have. So I guess my question to you is this something you see done in 8 years? Is it something that you see done in 3 to 4 years? And then when staff is looking at the budget next year, they already know what the plan is with to get them aligned. And then that way it's not really even a debate. We line up now and we know the path forward. So we're not going to be sitting around the table. Do we want to commit to a 3 or 4 year timeline? That was what the province wanted us to do. And we're not committing to the 32%, to be clear here, right? We're committing less. But is that a path that we can all live with? And we have a clear path. To me, we have 3 more budgets. We have this one and 2 more. Am I right on that? Assuming that we don't have another pandemic and the other, we have 5 years. We passed one, the province passed one. This is Steve, your second budget with it. 3 more after this? You're scaring me, really? I talked to Christina about that then. A full 4 years. So these counselors will be about a 5.5 year council term. Okay, so if we commit to 4 years, the last budget you pass will set up the community where the next council that sits here doesn't argue over the mill rate. It's all one.
Well, and I'll comment on that from the point of view, a lot of it will depend on the calculations that support how the mill rate is arrived at. And if Mr. Spear can come up with proper formulas and the proper allocations, and we can agree that that's the way to do it, then yeah, we don't have a problem if he comes up with the formula this year. But I realize that's an impossible task. And may always be an
Well,
impossible
I guess it's
task. I don't know.
I guess I need some type of roadmap to what the ultimate goal is. And if the 5 cents is a goal, I think we're almost there, to be honest, because there's only the town of the old town of St. Andrews, I'm going to use rural and urban. It's a lot easier. The urban areas went down some, and the rural areas went up about 4 1/3 cents, which actually left only a gap of 5 cents.
So based on the difference between mill rate and Shamrock Bayside and mill rate in St. Andrews, if they're in 4 years, means every year we need to get our mill rate, it's 4.3 cents, 4.4 cents closer. So it means that if St. Andrews lowers their mill rate by 4 cents this year and the whole Shamrock's the same, you got a quarter of the way there. That's just, but if we're gonna do it, that's an aggressive target, but it's 4.3. I'm pretty sure that's pretty darn close to what the video was. I said it's gonna take 7 to 8 years, but the old model hit 32%. It probably would have taken 7 or 8 years, right? So that doesn't make any numbers up. But it would be about 4.3, basically 4.3775 cents per year to get our mill rates together over 4 years. That's every year, and then we'd be at the same rate.
Your worship, can I
Oh, no microphone. Sorry.
ask for clarification?
What a comment to not have the microphone on for. Steve Neal said it then for the record.
But for clarification, though, I think when I'm talking about the same rate, though, I think it has to include the provincial levy, that you don't come at the same mill rate and then realizing they have to add 41.5 cents on top.
No, I'm talking, just to be clear. So I'm getting them at 96.77, right?
Yeah.
And we're at $1.14.
Yeah.
So if you do the difference of that, that is 17.5 cent difference. So you divide that by 4 and you get them that quarter together over 4 years. The end of 4 years, you have the same mill rate. And ideally, because assessments are through the roof, you get there by not increasing Shamrock Bayside. You get there by decreasing the old municipality because assessments are so high. So the mill rate stays similar in Shamrock Bayside, but Sanders is getting that break since they're paying more. That's the only path forward where I see the next council doesn't have to do what we're going through. And that's aggressive. maybe it's 8 years, maybe we do 2.5 and it's over the next council gets elected to continue our path. I don't know. It doesn't have to be 4. But if you want to be the ones to get it there, that's a legacy thing, but it's aggressive. That's a lot. That's a lot. Like I'm putting myself and we're not even calculating the fact that assessments are through the roof. So you add that on, it's compounded and eventually St. Andrews, we're not gonna be able to lower the mill rate, where ours might even have to go up. What does that mean for shit? So maybe it's an 8-year, I don't know. All I'm saying is I think that's the end game. We should set a timeline and next year we don't even have to debate it. So question to you is 4.7 cents every year for the next 4 years aggressive? I kind of think it is. With assessments through the roof. I want to get there to say we're the council that got there, but I think it's really, really aggressive.
And I'll comment on that from the point of view of assessments. Last year, mine went up, I don't know, 37% or something. So I think you were in the same boat.
I am, yeah.
So we get 10% a year. So we get 10% increase in our taxes there, and it just, becomes, it does become worrisome to the people that are just managing to get by. And but I think we do set a goal, but I think Mr. Spear has some more work to do on it. We have some more thinking to do on it. But I think by this time next year, we will have it solved as far as how we're going to get there.
Okay, just to put a number in council's head, if you did it over 7 years, it'd be 2.5 cents per year. That's a more manageable, sustainable number, and it's a path. We don't get to decide the next council. They'll have to keep it going, but you've got a path and a roadmap for them to all be on the same page. To me, that's a workable number to me. So council, I have a consensus. If you think that that's the end game that we want to commit to as a council, doesn't mean we get there, but that we all see that that's the end of this kind of thing. Anyone think that is the roadmap to get them the same? Quick show of hands if you do. If you don't,
I'm not trying to be uncooperative here.
Yep.
I keep looking at the provincial levy, and with the garbage collection going up this year, and the fact that we already pay more than 2 times for our garbage collection than what town does, and knowing that there's a significant increase more for us this year than for the town, the wonderful job that staff did by getting us on. Thank you. Sorry, the work that the town did to include us into the policing agreement and saving the money there, I think that's phenomenal. And I really hope that what we talked about earlier tonight in maybe going to the rural commission and trying to maybe see if we can get a garbage collection or for this region, and if we can save a ton of money there, then rather than, like you said, raising tax rates, we can lower tax rates. And if we can get to that number by lowering them, because we get more fiscally responsible, because I'm sorry, I got a hard job to believe that it costs more than twice as much to collect garbage in Shamcook and Bayside than it does in town. I got a real hard job to believe that. We're still the same distance away from where we dump, and a length of a road is still a length of a road. So I got to believe that the town does a much better job negotiating their garbage collection than what the province negotiated our rate for collecting garbage. And I'm not trying to complain about the way that the province did things, but I really don't believe that the province had Shamcook's best interests in line when they negotiated our garbage rate. I believe we're paying way more than our fair share for that. No different than I think we're paying way more than our fair share for our road services, especially considering we have so few lane kilometers of road. And then for those of us who don't get those road services, that's even worse. So when we can get to a point where we can negotiate in better faith those contracts, so we're actually paying the real cost, like in town, the townspeople paid a real cost for your road services. We're not in Shamcook. We're clearly subsidizing another region. And I really hope that, there's some way that we can renegotiate those contracts to get those numbers closer to what we're paying for the services that we receive.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree 100%. I think the fact that they're paying double per capita doesn't make sense to me. I understand for roads, there's a lot more distance. There's a lot of reasons why it would be more for some of it, but double for garbage. I know they have to drive further between houses, but they still have to go all the way out the landfill. In order to get to St. Andrews, you have to go through most of Shamcook Bayside to get here. In this particular case, it's Bayside, but you have to drive through it the entire length of Bayside to do garbage removal in our community and take it back. So I see what you're saying. I agree. But right now, those are the costs that we have. And until we renegotiate those, if we do, it is savings to your point. The RCMP, hopefully, and it looks positive, is a real good indication. So council.
Can I just say again, sorry, excuse me,
Yep.
but I do want to, acknowledge the fact that by negotiating that RCMP deal and saving us a significant amount of money with the first renegotiation, that's a wonderful start. And that's a really good job.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for that. Council, so we don't necessarily have to. So I guess we're just consensus for, do you want a consensus on the different, what I'd say is
I think I guess what I'm hearing, tell me if I'm wrong, that Bayside and Shamcook, that tax zone is good for a 2 cent increase. If I can work that into the rate, I hate to use the numbers, but I can play with the other numbers to make it all fill in the sharing model. But at least I know what the final outcome, again, if it's around 2.5 cents, I'll do the sharing to reflect that. And I think the province will be out. What's that?
Creative county.
No. Well,
let's see what council
creative formulas.
let's see what that looks like, and then we'll talk about it next time. Do you agree on that? And then based on that, that'd be a projection if we did that kind of. But if you're lowering the Sayers Mill rate, that separates it even more and makes it closer together.
Well, no, we're just to be clear though, if we're not increasing theirs, say for a nickel, just what I kind of had in that
Yep.
first thing, it means the urban areas won't go down as far as originally suggested.
Okay.
You gotta meet somewhere.
Yep, but
The
that,
total revenue figure's the same.
but that's
one way or
okay.
the
The
other.
TAM will still go down a little bit and
Yeah.
it gets it closer to that level of where we need to get to, and it's not as aggressive on Shamcook Bayside. Let's see what that looks like, council, unless someone has opposed. I think that's what I'd like to see, and then see what it looks like for a number for St. Andrews, the old St. Andrews. And I really look forward to council someday not doing this. But thank you for being open-minded. I will say it was really good to see the rural councillors, as it impacts them the most, be the most vocal. It's really good to hear from you, and it's really reassuring as someone has to moderate all this, to hear that you want to get to the same end game where we can just move on as one community. So is there anything else for you? Or we have closed session, but is there anything else on that? Council, thank you so much. That was long.
I think I'm good, your worship. Just,
All right.
do you think that the meeting on 2 weeks or a week and a half? No. Are we going to meet this coming Tuesday again, or can we wait till the regular council session on the 22nd?
I think we made the regular council session since you guys hammered it through, because you have a pretty solid draft to show us next time, right?
I think we're there. And if we find on the 22nd, there's still a little bit of disagreement, we can still bring it forward in the
We
December.
could always call another meeting right there
Yeah.
too, right? A special meeting if we have to hammer it through.
Okay.
That
Thank you for
saved
having
you
that time off.
potentially a Saturday and a Tuesday by doing that. Thank you, council. So that takes care of the main item for the agenda. Closed session is going to be very, very quick. I'm pretty confident it is. I think I promised that before and never delivered though. Question period. Anyone online have any questions? No one has emailed you. The audience, anyone there? They're good. Council,
So,
deputy
ca-
mayors,
ca-
you had
council-
last night. No one has any comments?
Council, I just need to comment that you've had consistently 8+ viewers on Facebook.
Probably us.
It's 3
probably
hours and
us.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know.
All right. Thank you for anyone that is still watching this. So no councillor, deputy mayors, no mayor's comments. Could I have a motion to go to closed session? I need to know though, what section it's under.
Yeah, so council, I'll just do the motion. Council, at 10:14 PM, the council of the town of St. Andrews goes into closed session as per Local Governance Act, section 68(1)(c), information that can cause financial loss or gain to a person or a local government, or could jeopardize negotiations leading to an agreement or contract.
Okay. Could I have a mover? Got Councillor Heenan, Councillor Bennett, all in favor of going to closed session? Thank you very much, CHGO, for being here for,
Thank you,
what was
CHCO.
that? Let's call it 4 hours.
Thanks,
almost?
Luke, for staying so long.
Motion to come out of closed session. I've got Councillor Hurdle, seconded by Councillor Harlan. I didn't look right that time, sorry. All in favor of coming out of closed session? Could I have a motion to adjourn, Deputy Mayor Akaji? And Councillor Hurdle won that one. It was like the wave. All in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. We are adjourned.